She's an experienced health educator with a lifetime of dedicated service in the mission field. After working as an occupational therapy assistant with the developmentally disabled, she developed a strong desire to serve others. She studied at the Eden Valley Institute in Loveland, California, where she developed her skills and love for the medical missionary work. She's traveled throughout the United States and overseas on numerous mission trips. And some of her fondest memories are from her time spent in the Caribbean on the island of St. Vincent. Any St. Vincent people here? She served for 3 years. Her work as a medical missionary includes Bible work, evangelism, and church planting. I spent a very short trip with Mary on the way home, and she has Jesus in her heart. I just want to tell you. She lives, breathes the hope of the second coming. So, wonderful. Mary currently serves. She took off, this is her weekend off that she's come here for free to, she serves as a lifestyle coordinator at Whiteville Lifeside Center in Georgia. And this is her weekend off, and she's decided to come and bless us on her day off. And so I just really, I'm almost to tears when I think about the sacrifices these 3 people are making to serve us. She's extremely talented, knowledgeable, and proficient in health and wellness practices. Her most exciting life experiences revolve around seeing the lives of those she serves be restored to both physical and spiritual health. She is a wealth of information. We ran out of almond milk this morning because I didn't plan well. And all we had to do was say, Mary, what do we do? She says, 2 cups of cashew, 2 cups of milk, agave, a sprinkle of salt. And we had to, listen, I've never tasted milk that good. All I did was put that in a blender and you all, Sabbath milk. But it was wonderful and not as expensive as that big bottle with mostly water that we buy in the store. So, these people come with so much to offer us. I'm not going to belabor it anymore. I'm going to hand off the microphone to Dr. Hamilton.
Thank you, my darling. Well, good afternoon to all. This afternoon, for this segment, my segment, I'd like to address hypertension. This disease is pretty widespread. Can you hear me now? It's widespread, and it's no respecter of age. The youngest person I've seen with high blood pressure is an 8-year-old little girl, well developed, with a blood pressure of systolic 150. That's really outrageous. She's a child. Should be on a swing. So, and of course, it starts from, well, she was 8. I can't imagine a 6-year-old having high blood pressure. But the thing with high blood pressure, there is no pain. And that is one thing I would like to stress and emphasize. We cannot depend on feelings. You can't wait till you have a headache, or you have visual disturbances, or if you have even chest pain. High blood pressure is one of the silent killers. That's why having an annual examination, also including some labs, will always help. And just to put your mind at ease, I know the insurance companies want you to do your annual or your wellness visits, because early detection early prevention. And of course, it's much, much easier to prevent rather than curing. Every third adult has hypertension. So about a third of us in here. How many of you know what your blood pressure readings are? How many of you? Do you check on a regular basis? And for those of you who are not taking blood pressure medicines, do you check your blood pressure periodically? For those of you who are not diagnosed with hypertension. Well, that's good. It's almost like driving a vehicle without a gas gauge. You need to know where you are in terms of your blood pressure reading. Here are the stages of high blood pressure. Years ago, and I'm maybe 20, 30 years, high blood pressure was anything systolic over 140. Now that has since changed. It's anything over 120. Now for a diabetic, the guidelines now are to have it less than 120 systolic. The reason being earlier intervention. Diabetes, high blood pressure, it damages the intima or the inner lining of our blood vessels. And when that's damaged, things happen. It just breaks down the integrity. And I like to give the analogy of a water hose. If water is pouring out, it will pour out nice and gently. But if there's a stone wedged in that hose, now we have that pressure. And that pressure, if you put it on your skin, it hurts. So if you think about the smaller vessels, your capillaries that go to venules and then arterioles and then to arteries and veins and eventually the aorta, we have things like, have you heard of an aneurysm? High blood pressure can predispose to an aneurysm. So here are the stages. I'm having a hard time seeing this side. Okay, can you see that? Okay, so basically 160, you're in a very dangerous level. Thursday, before we came down here, I went to another home. Oh, by the way, let me just share what I do. You keep hearing me telling these stories. I see approximately 2,000 people per year with the job I'm doing. Currently, I am working with all insurance companies, and we are the providers that come into the home and ask you about 100 questions on a little laptop, and we suggest, I will diagnose, but I don't treat. So I don't write prescriptions at that setting. So I see a lot of individuals. So I was at a home, and this person, it's a female, has high blood pressure. She was on 3 medicines. She was on a water pill, clonidine, and maybe benazepril. And I checked her pressure. The first time it was like 179 systolic. So I asked her, did you take your medication? She said, oh, yes, I took it about an hour ago. So throughout the visit, it's about a 45-minute visit, I checked it again, and now she was 190. So based on our protocol with the company that I work, anything over 180 systolic, I need to call the primary care doctor and say, listen, this is the situation, after assessing. So I waited another 10 minutes, because that's with blood pressure. You can think of something negatively, blood pressure goes up. In minutes. And that's why we have to know where we are. So I called her primary care doctor, and this is a true story because it was unbelievable. I called, and I didn't speak to the provider. I spoke with the nurse, and I explained the situation. So I checked her pressure like 4 different times within the hour, and they were all 180s. Now, anxiety will do that. And there is a certain amount of anxiety when they're expecting another provider in the home, going over their medications, because we find errors. I've found pharmacy errors, 2 drugs, they're taking it. A lot of people are lacking the education for their own health. Individuals say, oh, I take that because my doctor told me. No. You need to know why you're taking it. Do you know the side effects? Are you reading the fine print when you get from the pharmacy, when you pick up the bag? All that blah, blah, blah. Take some time to read it. That's bathroom reading, really. Read it, educate yourself. So when I called the doctor, the instructions were, because I as a provider myself, I'm trying not to overstep and take control because they are not my patient. I have them there for literally 45 to 50 minutes. And listen to what this nurse told me, and I had the phone on speaker. She said, make sure the patient has had enough adequate hydration. And that was her first try, because when I got there and I saw the first 170, I said, have you had any water? She told me no. This was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She hadn't had any water. She said, but I had 2 cups of coffee, though. I said, that's not water. I said, would you wash your hair with coffee? She said, no. I said, would you brush your teeth with coffee? Would you do your laundry with coffee? She said, no. I said, why not? She said, it would be sticky. I said, well, it's the same thing with the cells of the body. The body needs water, not coffee or tea. So the instructions were, make sure she's had enough water and make sure she takes some salt. So, and the patient looked at me like she said, I am not doing that. I said, okay, let me be clear. The blood pressure is, and I listed it, 170, 180, 190. She was increasing. And I said, what did the provider say? I wanted the patient to hear. She needs to walk around. She needs to increase her water intake, which we did because she was severely dehydrated, and to take salt. Now, I told the patient, I said, I have never heard that. Maybe this is some new data that I am not up to date with. That does not make any sense. I would advise you not to do it. I overrode the provider. So I don't generally give my cell number to the patients, but I did in this case because I'm like, this is ridiculous. Who is she seeing? Why are they saying that? Salt, water follows salt. You don't give salt to someone with 180s. I mean, that was just mind-blowing to me. Anyway, long story short, the nurse was in error. She was looking at the hypotensive reading. Now, that could have cost my patient's life. Had she not been, she's like, no. She said, I'm not medical, but I have enough sense. I am not taking any salt. I'm like, good for you. I agree. So we were in agreement. So my point is, things happen. She was just reading and she's a nurse. She was reading, walk around, drink some water, take some salt. And I asked her twice. I said, Lester, let me be clear. Are you sure? She said, yes, that's what Dr. So-and-so, that's her recommendations. So that was a good ending to that story. So another point in that little detail, get the facts. When you're with your providers, remember, your providers work for you. You don't work for your providers. Please feel comfortable. Write down your questions. Now, I know with managed care, it's very, very difficult. It's timed. You have maybe 15 minutes for one patient, and in that 15 minutes, they have to read your chart, see you, do the notes in 15 minutes. So it really equates about 7 minutes with face-to-face. You're in the waiting room 45 minutes. Then you're with the nurse maybe another 12 to 13. So be intentional about your visits, because I've heard of so many horror stories. We just need to be proactive. Have your list. Now, most providers will also say, no, I can only deal with 2 or 3 things this visit. You really should, 2 visits. Okay, we have a provider here. And I understand, so we have to prioritize. So if you go in with, of course, if it's something really severe like chest pain or headache or some serious GI, you can, ask them, say, please, I'm here just such a time. And like somebody like Dr. Marcia, she'll say, okay, tell me, what are your other issues? But be quick about it, because it's managed care and the insurance is controlling. And it's a lot of bureaucracy, and it's just a sad fact. The days of a doctor coming to the home with that little black bag is non-existent, because they could deliver babies, treat heart attacks, suture, all at the same visit. Now they have to go to urgent center or ER. So that is the high blood pressure readings. So here we are, hypertension versus, are you seeing it? Not yet. Hypertension versus no hypertension. What's happening at the intimal level of the arteries? I'll move on. I won't wait on that. I want to get to the good parts here. So hypertension will damage every single cell of the body. The vessels, the tissue, the organs, the systems. Depression and anxiety, as a matter of fact, anxiety is the most treated disease nationwide right now. That's the current data that I have found. A lot of people suffer from anxiety. Now, you can have anxiety and not necessarily have depression. But most times, if you are depressed, you have anxiety. Not necessarily so. So there are treatments I tell people. They are just so on edge. And honestly, the New Start, if that entire acronym, if you can justify or you can say, I'm good with this, I'm deficient in this, and just do a self-check regarding New Start, most times anxiety can be controlled. Sleep deprivation, that's a big one. Lack of exercise and stress. Overworked. We only have 24 hours in the day, and 8 hours of that time should be sleeping. So that's the first thing we tend to break the rules on, because you have things to do, calls to make, people to see. And I told somebody just this week, when we are in demand or people are demanding our time and our attention, yes, we have to give our parents, our siblings, our children their time. But there comes a time, and it's called self-preservation. No is a complete sentence. You can add to it, I'm sorry, and be firm. Some people will try to manipulate and say, well, so and so. I'm sorry, no. And the longer you stay in conversation, the chances you may bend or relent, but we have to be stewards of this body. No is a complete sentence. Let me move on here. We talked about this last night. Basically, ascertain the cause of any illness. Now, certain things we have no control over. Our sex, genetics, our age. We can't control that. But for the most part, those in the middle, starting from physical inactivity, hyperthyroidism, that's another condition, but most of these here are lifestyles. Smoking, excess salt, obesity, stress, alcohol. We can make the necessary changes. All these entities here will predispose us to having high blood pressure. So, the crux and the main portion I'd like to get into now is how can we overcome hypertension naturally? Yes, there are drugs, a lot of medications out there to treat high blood pressure. I must make a disclaimer. If you're on any medication, this is not the setting to try and start coming off. Please. This is something you need to discuss with your provider. And I'll tell anyone, and I'll mention it here, if you will start any kind of lifestyle intervention or lifestyle therapeutic, you are going to notice a drop in your pressure. What does that mean? You will, let's say tomorrow you start walking and deep breathing and exercising. It's automatic. Your pressure is going to get lower. So when you start feeling that lightheadedness, check your blood pressure. You may have to have a conversation with your doctor to try and start weaning or cutting it in half. If you are on 4 or 5 medications, the weaning will begin, but has to be medically supervised. Are we clear on that? So don't go home and say, oh, I'm not taking my blood pressure tomorrow, please. So, because that happens. People, we get so excited, and you had a good pharmacy. Did you enjoy that salad bar? Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine, and let medicine be your food. So we had our big farm over there. That was our disclaimer. So, natural remedies used in accordance with God's will, and I would encourage each of you to just memorize this very simple quotation. Natural remedies used in accordance with God's will bring about supernatural results. Miracles every day at Wildwood and Uchi Pines and Eden Valley, all these different lifestyle institutions. Now, this is not new for our church organization. There are other organizations that has the same lifestyle, not necessarily New Start, but it's the same concept, but they have other false methodologies of healing. And I know my husband has an amazing talk on that. We won't have time to get in. Looking at the iris or looking at the feet, reflexology, all kinds of, and the source of it. Now, it's a spirit that's controlling everything. We have the Holy Spirit and we have the enemy's spirit. So what is behind these other alternative lifestyle interventions? Something we have to be very aware of and be educated on the different modalities that are out there and advertised. So the first natural remedy I'd like to talk about is a fast. A fast. We have several different kinds of fast. You have ideally 1 to 5 days drinking only water or herbal teas. Now, this study was coming from Uchee Pines, which is in Seal, Alabama. And the doctor who was there, Dr. Mark, he mentioned that in 47 years of experience at Uchee Pines, he said they have found that blood pressures will decrease quite quickly while someone is fasting. Now, study shows that medically supervised water only, we're just talking a water fast, can have blood pressure reductions as great as 60, systolically, the top number, in those blood pressures over 180. So the higher the blood pressure, 180, 190, they would put these patients on a fast and they will drop up to 60 points. So you can go from, let's say you're 180, you can come down to 120 after the 3, 4, 5 day fast. This must be medically supervised. Must be medically supervised. This is not something you do at home. But the point of this slide, fasting will help. It resets. Now at Wildwood, and I think they still do this, Mary, most patients come in, regardless of the ailment, we put them on a 3-day fast or a 2-day fast. Some patients go on a 2-day fast or a 3-day fast. Some individuals don't want to fast. They've never fasted. And we'll read a very, very potent and important, quotation that's talking about fasting. Let me move on. Maybe it's here. So this is from Benjamin Franklin. He says, "The best of all medicines are not portions of drugs, but rather what? Rest." Benjamin Franklin. Was he an Adventist? Types of fast, we have several here: water, juice, partial avoiding of starches or sugars, the cleansing and detox. All these, most of these can be done in your own home, but try not to start something that you're not familiar with alone at home. You need some form of support or to give an accountability. It must be medically supervised if you're doing water only for an extended period of time. People who should not fast: if you're severely underweight, if you have cancer, certain types of cancer, because cancer feeds on nutrition. And now some cancers, you need to fast. I don't have them listed here. But these people should not fast. H. pylori, that's a opportunist, really, bacteria that's in the gut. And a lot of individuals, unfortunately, because the acid is not being produced because of these drugs that suppress the acid production, they have a tendency of getting H. pylori. The acid is not there to kill. So we have our children. Thank God, we're so amazingly made. If we didn't have that acid in our stomach, our little children, they play in the dirt, they eat worms, they do stuff on the swings, they don't wash their hands every 10 minutes outside with other children. And God has that acid. It's a protective mechanism that we need to really keep and protect. So the weak individual, if you're recovering from surgery, that's not the time to fast. That's when you're trying to rebuild. You just went through, you were traumatized with anesthesia, with the surgery, and perhaps exposure. We call them nosocomial infections in the hospital. And I want to encourage everyone here, if you have to have a surgical procedure, take someone with you. Someone needs to be with you. And I hate to say that because our hospitals, my mother just had surgery. And yes, my sister and I, we did shifts spending the night. But healthcare has really declined. We have to be proactive. This is my body. And question if you have any doubts, like that situation with the salt and having high blood pressure. I was ready to go home and go on the computer and said, let me find out, is there new research to add salt to the diet if you have high blood pressure? No such thing. And that was a huge, huge error. What is intermittent fasting? Anyone is familiar with that? Intermittent fasting? Okay, so we have started this about maybe 10 years, in our home, maybe a little longer. We eat breakfast, 5 to 6 hours later, lunch, and then our next meal is breakfast the next day. Now, there are some times that we have to break that routine if we're traveling or if we're up exceptionally late. We get a little bit hungry, but ideally, if we're in bed at a reasonable time, start the process of going to bed, 8:39, so at least I can be laying down by 10. That's my cutoff. Does it happen every night? Absolutely not, but that's my goal. I have a desire. And that's a lifestyle that I am deficient in as well. I'm being transparent. So fasting, here are some mental benefits. It will reduce inflammation, creates more brain cells neurogenesis. That's the beginning or the making of brain cells. Higher rates of neurogenesis are linked to increased brain performance. Memory. Everybody knows somebody now with this thing called dementia, Alzheimer's, and for some people it's a rapid decline. There are a lot of studies out there now regarding dementia, but this was interesting to me that fasting has been shown to increase the rates of the neurogenesis in the brain. So if we can't do a juice or a water fast, do the intermittent fasting. You can do that 365 days a year. Just 2 meals a day. No supper. You're getting ready for bed. That's the time, as I said, I mentioned last night, for those of you who were here, going to bed with an empty stomach is the best thing. Just maybe have a little water. For some people, and that's why they're so dehydrated, they said, I am up all night urinating. But I'm telling them, prove it to yourself. Even if you don't drink the water, you wake up so dehydrated. And a lot of heart attacks happen at night because of the dehydration. Go to bed with a bottle by your bed. It's okay. Plus, you get up, and as long as you can fall back to sleep, ideally, if you can cut off your water drinking at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, you should be able to go all night. If you get in bed at a reasonable time, 9, 10 the latest, you should be able to sleep from 10 till 5, uninterrupted. And if it doesn't happen, it could be other things. It could be hormonal. It could be a urinary tract infection. There are other components involved. You may have just had a lot of extra salt that day. But it's something you have to self-examine. Why am I getting up 2 hours later? I just used the bathroom. There's a reason behind it. Always to ascertain the cause. Here's the quotation. And it's coming from Counsels and Diet 189.4. Very, very important. Something I'll encourage each of you to memorize. It says, there are some who would be benefited more by abstinence from food for a day or two every week. Every week. This is not once a month or once a year. Every week. Every week. Then, read the highlighted section with me. By any amount of treatment or medical advice. Mercy. There are some, now this is not for everyone. I had a caveat before. Cancer, surgery, underweight, H. pylori. There are certain people who really, it's not advisable that you should fast. But there are some who would be benefited more by just abstaining from food. We are what we eat. We are what we eat. To fast 1 day a week would be of incalculable benefit to them. What does that word mean? Incalculable. What does it mean? Numerous or great. Okay, so it's a benefit. It's a benefit. Fasting. How long did Jesus fast? 40 days. And I think there was another young man that tried it, and he became so emaciated. What's his name? Very emaciated, and he was almost next door to death. But it's not impossible. I'm not encouraging anyone to do 40 days, but it's a matter of self-discipline and self-denial to fast. Give up, if it's even just sugar you're giving up, something that you love, whether it's chocolate, sugar, ice cream at 10 o'clock at night. Mercy. Yes, indeed. All right, let's move on here. This BDNF, it's that protein, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Now, in rodents and monkeys, they did a study, according to a study published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry. Depression, listen to this. A review published in the Psychiatric Investigation found that decreased this BDNF expression was associated with major depressive disorders in clinical studies on patients, while those who were treated with antidepressants had increased BDNF. Fasting is good. It will help the memory. It will help the brain. Another thing, as we're talking about memory and dementia, hydration, the brain is 70% water. We spoke to a young man today. He's not here now. So he came and was talking to my husband and I just asked him, because his lips just looked dry. I said, have you had any water today? He said, no. I said, it's almost 2 o'clock. You haven't had any water. And we're just talking about the brain functions. We are more alert when we are hydrated. The brain is like a sponge. If it's 70% water, we need to give it what it needs. Just like our vehicles, it runs on gasoline. We need to put gasoline and not Pepsi in the car because it won't run. Well, the master designer, we have to have water. That's what our cells are begging for. That's how we function. That's what our alertness. We need water. Caution for long fast, very important. It does not benefit you physically if you overdo it. It's not a spiritual requirement, and the effect can be lost if it's gone for too long. Tendencies to overeat. Now, when you end a fast, just as important as when you're going on a fast, you need to slowly introduce back food. So let's say you did a 2-day fast. It should take 2 days for you to get back to your normal routine. To break a fast, you want to do some kind of steamed greens. Now, yes, you will be hungry. And if you're constantly thinking about it for the 2 days, only 2 days, you need to break this fast slowly. Get it back into your system. Let's talk a little bit about salt. We need to eat a low sodium salt. And I'm going to test each of you now. So I want everybody to take a deep breath. Get some mental alertness here, and I'm going to quiz you. Which foods are higher in sodium? Number 1. 1 cup of corn chips versus 1 cup of corn flakes. Which one has more salt? A or B? Corn chips? All right. Next. Peanuts, 1/4 cup versus tomato soup, 1 can. A or B? B. All right. Sauerkraut, that's like a pickled cabbage, versus an Egg McMuffin. Which one do you think has more salt? A or B? I'm hearing both. Who says A? A. Hands up. B? Okay. Next. Potato chips, 1 small bag that you can pick up at the gas station versus instant mashed potatoes. A or B? Instant mashed potatoes? B? All right. Just remember what you said now. Remember, we're coming back. Cured ham, only 3 ounces versus Chinese rice, only 1 cup. A's? Put your hands up for A. B? All right. Now, who eats only 1 cup of fried rice at a Chinese restaurant? It's usually at least 2. It's never 1. Okay, moving on here. French fries, 1 serving versus ice cream, soft serve. Which one? A. Everybody, the A's have it? All right, moving on. Bouillon, just a 1/2 cup versus a dill pickle, 1 large. A or B? How many say A? B? 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 All right. I have 2 or 3 more. Frozen peas versus canned peas. Canned peas. B. Bacon, 2 slices, or Danish pastry, 1 little piece. The bacon. Buttermilk versus cottage cheese. Cup for cup, A or B. Which one do you think has more salt? A's, let's see the A's. B's. Are you ready for the results? Let's do it. Are you really ready? Corn chips versus corn flakes. Yeah. Peanuts, a quarter cup. Tomato soup. Yeah. Sauerkraut versus an Egg McMuffin. Uh-huh. And how many people you know just eat one Egg McMuffin? And no wonder you're so thirsty. You're on your way to work, and you have that muffin. Potato chips versus instant mashed potatoes. Yes, yes. What about the cured ham versus Chinese rice? Now remember, it's 1 cup. French fries. French fries. Ice cream. Now, let me pause here. Let me take a quick break. Did you know that if you have enough sugar in a salty meal, you may not necessarily taste the salt? Do you taste salt with ice cream? Soft served? No, but it's loaded with salt to keep it soft. That's why you need the salt, to keep it soft. So, and I did this experiment myself because I'm one of those individuals. I like to try things for myself. So hominy, most of you know the dried hominy. I wanted to make some hominy porridge. So I put some hominy in my crock pot. This is when we lived in Fort Lauderdale. And I put a little salt and I put a little sugar. But it was so bland. So I decided I wouldn't mind wasting the pot. So I put maybe half a cup of sugar and I put a cup of salt. It was very salty. So I wanted to get rid of the salt flavor, so I dumped a whole lot of sugar. And it tasted at the end, when I stopped my experiment, it tasted like not as salty as seawater, but it was bland. Now, I had a lot of sugar in there. I mean, I had to throw it out, but I wanted to see how much sugar it will take to counteract the salty flavor. And it took a lot of sugar. But you cannot depend on your taste buds. That's the point. Don't trust your taste buds. Be a label reader. How much salt is in this? How much sugar is in this? Not because you don't taste it doesn't mean it's not there. Very important. So soft serve ice cream has a lot of salt. The bouillon versus a 1 dill large pickle. That's a lot of salt. Frozen peas versus canned peas. Yeah. Bacon, 2 slices. Danish pastry. Buttermilk versus cottage cheese. This is just an awareness. We may not think about it. Salt is in everything now. I don't think maybe lettuce. I don't think lettuce has salt. But most, even natural foods have salt. Have to be mindful of that. And when we're cooking, some people, we call them the shakers. You'll go to a restaurant. They don't even taste the food. They're shaking on the salt. They're so accustomed to that. A little bit about salt. The salt that we get in the stores, we try not to get just salt and calcium. Sodium and chloride. It's only 2 ingredients in your basic table salt. You want to get salt that has minerals because it will enhance the flavor of our foods. Like sea salt is good. The pink Himalayan is good. The Celtic salt, a lot of minerals, because people put Celtic salt in things like their greens, and it just gives it a nice flavor. Sodium chloride salt, I know it's cheap salt, and it's readily available, but we should try and avoid that, because especially the aluminum. The aluminum is what makes it flow nicely, and aluminum has now been traced to dementia. A lot of patients on autopsy where on the brain autopsy, they discovered fragments of aluminum. Years ago, I know we used to cook in aluminum pots. But since this has been discovered, they realized, no, we have to transition to stainless steel. If you're using aluminum foil, now we did today, but we put parchment paper, I don't know if you noticed it, in between. So eat out of parchment, and you can cover that with the foil, but we try to avoid anything with aluminum. Years ago, as I said, this is relatively new. Our parents and grandparents everybody had their big aluminum pots. But we know better, so we're doing better now. Moving on here. So we want to maintain a high potassium to sodium ratio. Items that are high in potassium but low in sodium include things like nuts and seeds and your legumes, beans, peas, lentils, with soy being the best performer in the group. Your dried fruit. But we need to watch out for sugar, as I mentioned. Now, dried fruit, a little thing on dried fruit, try and always get unsulfured. Unsulfured. Your sulfured foods are bright orange, bright yellow, like your pineapple is a bright, pretty yellow. But the unsulfured is more dull. We had unsulfured this morning because I made note it's on a dull. And those sulfides can be carcinogenic. So we try to stay away from anything that's overly processed. We'd want to stay away from that. So the more potassium you eat, the more sodium you will lose in your urine. So that's why we encourage these items here. Here are some other foods that will reduce naturally blood pressure in our diets. Are you familiar with flax seeds? Very good. It's very good. It's like the equivalent of Miralax. It does wonders to the colon. It's almost like a Roto-Rooter. Something we can sprinkle on your cereal. You can mix it with milk, but it will congeal. Flax seeds should be grounded, and actually it should be toasted, lightly toasted. First time I toasted it, I turned the oven up to 350, and then I heard pop, pop, pop. That's not the way to do it. It was burnt. So you barely toast it at, Mary, about 225 for how long? About 20 minutes. Toast it, ground it, keep it in the refrigerator or in a mason jar of some sort. Garlic. Garlic is almost a win-win situation. You can't go wrong with garlic. However, as I mentioned either last night or this morning, it is a blood thinner, a natural blood thinner, something to be aware of. Now, there are pro-inflammatory diseases, diabetes being number one. It will cause a lot of inflammation just due to the disease process. It causes inflammation, so we need to learn to get into more anti-inflammatory foods like your ginger and your turmeric. So basically your plant-based foods. Blood pressure reducing supplements and herbs. We have, I cannot see that there, the L-arginine, magnesium, and of course CoQ10. I mentioned that this morning. We make that enzyme, but it's something we need to take as well to supplement. You don't have to, but it's just a recommendation. But especially if you're taking a statin, you love a statin, atorvastatin, any statin medication. How does one get high cholesterol? Yes, there is a genetic predisposition, but it's lifestyle that does the other half. Eating late and going to bed predisposes you to high cholesterol. And believe it or not, too many nuts, and that's where moderation comes in. I've known vegans with high cholesterol. And after putting on that investigation cap and finding out why, nuts, they'd have not, what can hold in the hollow of your hand is a serving for nuts. Not half a bottle. 3 times a day. Too many nuts. No. That will actually cause high cholesterol as well. So we have to be careful. Nuts like cashew, There's cholesterol, but it's the good cholesterol. Avocados, walnuts, all those are your good omega-3. We don't make that. Those are essential fatty acids. We need to ingest that because for the body's metabolism and even at the cellular level, something to be mindful of. So a little is good, a lot is not necessarily better. That's where the temperance comes into place. All right, I think we are pretty much blood pressure reducing herbs. Okay, a couple more slides here. Hibiscus, olive leaf, hawthorn berry. Hawthorn berry is a very good supplement. I haven't really heard too many side effects regarding hawthorn berry. Valerian, that's where we get Valium from, and that's for anti-anxiety. So my patients that are with anxiety, and you can tell they're just antsy, you tell them either go in the garden as a treatment, go for a walk, do some jumping jacks, push-ups, sit-ups, just to get that energy out. Tire them out, not to fatigue. You can do this even on the job, because when anxiety starts coming, oh, I need my anti-anxiety, and they just can't function. Usually a lot has to do with too much sugar and dehydration. Those two combinations. Let's talk a little bit more about exercise. Well, I think you're talking about exercise, right? No, not really. Exercise, I mentioned it last night briefly, but it's very interesting now. Exercise will reduce blood pressure, and for those of you who took a walk today, if you walked at least 10 to 15 minutes, your blood pressure was automatically decreased. That's a win-win situation. So you're getting exercise, and you'd get some sunshine, and it will also help with weight loss. And now this step number 8, avoiding things like alcohol, caffeine, and tobacco. We try to stay away from these negative components that will do damage to our bodies. Caffeine rarely causes death, but it's the most legally consumed addictive drug here in the United States. It's legalized, of course. Weight loss. Fat tissues produces a hormone called leptin, which causes the brain to send signals to the heart to increase blood pressure. So the more pounds we have on board, the higher our blood pressure specifically due to this hormone called leptin. And here are some dramatic photos. So people can lose weight, we can do it, and it takes a determined mind. Now, oftentimes we tend to do things for a wedding or vacation or an anniversary, but we need to change that thinking. I'm not going on a diet for a wedding. I'm going on a diet starting today for the rest of my life. It's a lifestyle decision that you're making, and it's permanent. Getting good sunshine, lots of studies with this. Listen to this one. If your pressure is high and you go outside for a walk, and they've done studies on this, it's 10 to 40 points just in the sunlight. If you can't walk, you have invalids, or if someone is in a wheelchair, put them outside in the sun. That will definitely decrease the blood pressure after 20 to 30 minutes. Then getting a good night's sleep. We talked a little bit about rest and how we are so sleep deprived. Excuse me. We find that the guests at this is at Dietary Pines, if they had a bad night, if they didn't sleep well, their blood pressures were higher in the morning. Getting a good night's rest and checking the blood pressure on arising, it would be lower. So research shows that sleep deprivation causes high blood pressure by changing how the brain responds to blood pressure signals, which in turn increase the blood pressure after poor sleep. Breathing. This is that important to be included in blood pressure, high blood pressure naturally. Reversal. So, a lot of emergency room physicians, they utilize this technique. Now, it doesn't cure high blood pressure whatsoever, but learning to deep breathe, and I do this on my visit in the homes, you inhale for 4 seconds, take 4 seconds to inhale, you hold for 7 seconds, and you exhale slowly for 9 seconds. So now we're going to try it. Everyone now. Inhale for 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, I know that 9 sounds like a lot. But when you're in crisis, and if you have a family member and their blood pressure is high, or they didn't take their medications, or if they're waiting on the ambulance, you can tell them, take a deep breath. It works. I've seen it. And it's amazing. It's amazing. And the ER physicians that shared this with me, I said, I will remember this in my talks. Because they will see, because in the ER, you're being monitored automatically. And when they're talking to the patient, and another thing, anxiety. When you're with high blood pressure or any ailment, and you get anxious because you think of death. You think of your family. You think of your job. And life comes in front of you, and the anxiety level goes up. So does the blood pressure. So talking, you can't be anxious even though you're praying in your heart. You say, Lord, have mercy and help such and such a person. But we have to recognize, we have to be calm because it's contagious, just like a smile. It's contagious. You talk to this person in a calm voice and just telling them it's going to be okay. Help is on the way. Now let's breathe deeply. And you tell them with the breathing, the pressure will come down. Like I say, it's not going to cure, but it certainly can intercept a stroke from happening. Now, some individuals will stroke out in the 200 range, systolic 200. Some people, and I've seen it, they will stroke out at 165, 168. So you don't have to be 200 to stroke out. It depends on the integrity of the vasculature in the body. How damaged are the cells over the years, whether it's food or toxin, environmental, whatever the situation is. So high blood pressure, regardless of the level, can cause a stroke. And people take it lightly because there's no pain, as we mentioned earlier. So deep breathing. So if you took your walk today, you're in the sunshine, you got exercise, and if you were breathing deeply, your blood pressure was down. I don't know about now. I'm sure it's lower because you're very relaxed. And a quiet environment, studies show that we have to reduce environmental noise. So if you live by an airport or a train line or, get some ear cloggers or something so you can have some form of quiet. The room needs to be relatively dark and quiet. If you're traveling a lot, invest in at the Dollar Tree some blinders and walk with a clothespin peg. If you're at some hotels, the curtains don't just quite close and you have that bright light outside. Walk with some close pegs so you have your room dark. If the microwave light is bothering you, plug it out. Get a nice dark room. So noise and can interfere. Hydrotherapy, I'm going to leave that for Mary, but hydrotherapy, and we will demonstrate this tomorrow with hot and cold because there's a treatment, a specific treatment. You can get ready to come, Mary. And you need to set her up, please. And what happens is, heat dilates, cold constricts. Heat dilates, cold constricts. And we have seen it bring down blood pressure. Before any natural remedy, we must ask the master designer for his blessing on the treatment. Now, even though it's simple, like breathing, that's a simple treatment to tell someone. But always ask for divine help. We're just conduits. The Lord uses us and will each of us here to be a help and source of healing to our fellow beings. Thank you. Okay, while they're setting up, we're going to stand and take a deep breath. For those of you who had an opportunity to see it inside parts of your eyelids, don't think I didn't see it. Yes, ma'am, you have a question? Yes. For what? Snoring? If the person is obese, weight loss, of course, that's an obvious one. The second one, I would go check with a dentist. For sometimes if there's malalignment, and when we're sleeping, everything is relaxed, so we don't know what's going on back here. So my second suggestion would be checking with a dentist. The third thing is just want to make sure there's nothing anatomically wrong. Now, some people that sleep on their backs, they will snore. If they turn on their sides, they breathe better. So, and of course, I don't know if you've heard of the table tennis balls. You cut it in half, and you tape it on their T-shirt and so anytime someone turns on their back, they feel it. So automatic, the intent is to turn back on the side. That sometimes will help. But in answer to the snoring, there are several things. And of course, sleep apnea is a big thing now. And that also could be related to diet. Eating late at night and trying to digest foods when we are sleeping. But obesity is usually the number one. And then secondly is the anatomical structure here in the neck. Yes?
I heard a medical missionary say one time that if you have high blood pressure that you should absolutely stay away from ginger. Is that, and that one confused me. Is that true?
I have not heard that. Ginger is a natural anti-inflammatory. It will decrease inflammation. I have not heard that. It's not true. We have a physician in the house. She says it's not true. Just like that doctor that told that patient with me on the phone, eat more salt, get your pressure down. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned...
All right, last question, and we sing one quick song, and then Mary starts. Oh, she's ready. I'm sorry.
You mentioned magnesium. Which one?
Magnesium citrate. We sell at Wildwood. Magnesium citrate. Citrate. Magnesium citrate. Now, we're going to sing one, and then we'll have a Q&A session tomorrow, so you have to come tomorrow. Yeah. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to move your arms and hands, get some circulation. The cross of Jesus going on before Christ the royal master leads against the foe. Onward into battle, see his banners flow. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war. With the cross of Jesus going on before. Everybody take a deep breath. Everybody say amen. Hallelujah.
Thank you. You may be seated. Now you're all awake, alive. All right, we're going to go right into the talk on hydrotherapy. I believe they'll bring the first slide up. Let's just have another word of prayer if we could before we begin. We just bow our heads. Dear Father, thank you so much for the wonderful information that you've given, for the blessing of hearing this talk from Joy. We pray that by your grace we'll put this into practice for ourselves more fully and to help other people, and that they will see you and be drawn to you. Bless as we go into this other talk that you can keep us alert to the things that will be helpful, and that you'll bring to my mind those things that will be best for all here. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, what is hydrotherapy? Do you see it all on the slides? No. I don't think that... do you see it now? No? Maybe we can get the AV people to bring that slide up. I know this was something that I had been familiar with somewhat. Thank you. Because my background's in occupational therapy, I would often work on medical teams with physical therapists, and we would use hydroculator packs and other things for treatment, but not to the extent that I later on understood it. And one of the first opportunities I had to utilize this, as I read through the writings of Ellen G. Whitus, I thought, these water treatments are amazing. And my sister got mononucleosis. So I thought, wow, this is my opportunity. So you'll have opportunity to use this on yourself, your family, and this is where you'll get more versed in it. And I'm sure many of you have already been using it through your life here. But it says it consists of the application of heat and cold to the body by means of water. And this can be in three forms. It can be either in solid, it could be in liquid or vapor, and it can be internally or externally in the treatment of disease or trauma. Okay, and you can see these various forms, and as far as the history of this goes, at least of what we have recorded, this man, he was a Greek physician, and he used the use of water in the treatment of disease is old as the practice of medicine. And records of the writings of Hippocrates indicate that as early as 450 BC, and after that, the Roman baths, existed. So it's interesting to know also that in 1747, John Wesley, he wrote a booklet, and he entitled it Primitive Physic. Okay, and so we see from our time back to that time is 2,474 years at least that we have record that it was being used in the treatment of disease. And to further this, there was a man named Vincent. He's known as the father of hydrotherapy. He was a farmer. He was uneducated. And he actually learned about the benefits of hydrotherapy when he did, believe it or not, hot and cold treatments on his livestock, okay, on his animals on his farm when they were sick or they were injured. And once Vincent watched a roe deer with a wounded limb coming to a pond to heal its wound, and he just observed, in the book of Job, it says, ask the beast and they will teach you, and ask the fish of the sea. They don't actually speak to us, right? But we can learn lessons from them that we can apply in our own lives. So he noted the success of these treatments, and he started to use them on himself and on others. And then after he was successful, he started his own hydrotherapy institute in Austria. Okay, and many scientists would make fun of this man because they believed it was nonsense. A lot of times when truth comes forward, whatever person or situation, oftentimes the enemy uses to debunk it, high science or maybe scorn, depending on who we are and so on, he may downplay this. But we need to take note that something's truth that we need to consider it. But after many years of success, and they could not deny that, right, that many of them believed in the benefits of hydrotherapy, and they endorsed such treatments. So this was only the beginnings of hydrotherapy. And if you're familiar with the health message among us as Seventh-day Adventists, our early founders went to a place called Our Home. And Our Home practiced under the doctor there, Dr. Troll, I believe his name was, how to use hydrotherapy. Now, they didn't agree with some of the practices that were done there, and they said this was the impetus, along with the counsels that God had given them, to start our own health care centers, or what Dr. Kellogg, one of our earliest physicians, coined as sanitariums. We don't use that anymore because it denotes centers of tuberculosis or mental asylums. So we use often, you'll hear the word lifestyle centers, okay? So this man, you can see the years that he lived, and as I said, the history of the hydrotherapy there in his life. So you'll often find books written on hydrotherapy. Dr. Kellogg's books, you can see, are mentioned here. Outlines of practical hydrotherapy and also rational hydrotherapy. And they're still being reprinted, and they're available for you to buy online. And I would encourage you, as we encourage our guests that come, as we explain to them the rationale of these treatments in combination with their lifestyle changes, they can learn, they can put this into practice themselves and to help other people. And during the pandemic, I don't know how many of you became more familiar with the history of some of our sanitariums, such as up in Maple Grove, Minnesota, where we had a sanitarium there. And during the flu epidemic of the early 1900s, many of these people came through successfully, of course, in the rational treatment of diseases we're talking about with diet and exercise and so on, but with the additional help of the use of hydrotherapy. Whereas many, many died during that flu pandemic, many of them were saved because of that practice. Now, Dr. Abbott, as you can see stated here, he wrote many books, and including a bunch of hydrotherapy books. They were used for training their students in hydrotherapy at the Loma Linda College. Many of you are familiar with our medical school. Years ago, they typically trained people in hydrotherapy. Okay, I think it's being re-resurrected. I might be wrong on that, but that's my understanding. So what are the remarkable properties of water that make it so beneficial? You know, and isn't God good? We had two sisters from Michigan, and they said, Mary, we're going to write a book. They said, we're going to write a book that's titled, How You Can Get Well Without Going Broke. You know, a lot of people think they have to be wealthy in order to stay well, but if you look at God's simple plan, it's for the poor as well as the rich. That's the way the gospel is, right? So it's available generally. It's abundant and cheap. Now, I've gone overseas to Cuba with Dr. Grievous and his wife. They have a lifestyle center with a team in Bourbon, Missouri. He once was at Wildwood. And we found, because the water was a little challenging, and even to get ice in Cuba, is that we did a wet sheet pack. And that wet sheet pack, where you take a person, of course they have to be have some vitality, and we would put them in a cold, wet sheet and wrap them with a blanket. It did three things: break a fever within 20 minutes. You could go to the hour, and it would help induce sleep when they had insomnia. So there was other things, but that we couldn't get maybe the ice and other things that we would have done in regular treatment. So you just adapt to where you are, okay? It has great power for absorbing and releasing heat. By the way, I want to tell you, and we'll share with you more stories tomorrow when we do the hydrotherapy, but we had one lady on our trip to Cuba. She was a very bad asthmatic. When she ever would get a breathing attack, she had to get her breathers. And one day, unfortunately, I locked the apartment where she had these, and we had just come back from some excursion where people, I don't know if it was a parade or whatever, but she was behind these cars down in Cuba that had no pollution control on them. Well, she went into a full-blown attack. And thankfully, she was able to get her feet in hot water. They were able to do what we call a cold tapotement, where we put cold towels on the chest and do like pounding, or we call it tapotement. And within, I think, just a brief time, she was able to come out of that asthmatic attack. And we had another man, the same scenario with him also. Okay, it has great solvent properties, one universal solvent, and it's easy to apply. Now, maybe it sounds a little cumbersome to many of you, but you'll see that some of these take a little bit of effort, and they take some knowledge, okay? But it's things that we can all do. I'll give you an example. When we were missionaries in the West Indies on the island of St. Vincent, we came across, and I was just new to these things. You know, I did not know. I'm glad the Lord winks at our ignorance, and he'll use whatever. But this woman, she had an alcoholic husband, and they were building a block house. All they had was the bottom part. She had 6 children. These 6 children, you could tell this woman was, exhausted. And she was so sick when I came to her home that day. I thought, well, I could do fomentations on her abdomen. And we didn't have even any towels in the house. It was so poor. And what they do down there is that they use old clothes and they put them over their mattresses to be like mattress covers. So I thought, that's all we have. And we didn't even have a stove or anything. All we had was a coal pot. Some of you familiar. Anyone familiar with coal pots? We had an old, aluminum pot, and we just stuck these things elevated on some things in the pot of water and heat these up. Well, these children, I prayed, and all the children gathered around their mother, and they watched me. And the one little boy said, "Can I do that on my mommy?" I said, "Sure." And so I showed him how. And within like 2 fomentations or less, she says, "I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me now." I thought, this is only a miracle of the Lord to give me encouragement. Plus, I thought, well, the attention she was getting from her children when they were always pulling on her vital energies and everything. But I thought, press ahead. Don't think you have to be an expert in these areas. The Lord will bless your efforts. So it's easy to apply. It's non-irritating, and it gives up heat rapidly. It yet doesn't cool too rapidly. And we'll show you that as we do some of these treatments like hot and cold, when you have those quick applications, they increase that circulation to the area. And we're told perfect health equals what? Perfect circulation. So our diet, our exercise, that's the bottom line. That's the foundation. But these things just aid nature. I think it was referred to by either Joy or Derrick. When disease comes, you ascertain the cause, okay? And we think, well, I'm not a physician. No, you do not have to be, as we're hearing here. You need to educate yourself, understand the laws of health, and so on. Then you want to discard or rid practices contrary to those things. And then the third one, which hydrotherapy falls under, is aid nature in the removal of these issues, okay? So we are just aiding nature in this process, okay? Our human body, the water composition is our muscles and kidneys are 79%, 83% lungs, brain and heart 70%, our skin 64%, and the bones 30%. So we largely, you can see, made up of water. How important then is to hydrate. Thank you. Nothing there. Nope. Did we miss that slide? Okay, you can see it there. I'm sorry. So very important, the percentage of water, especially now as we get older too, and we maybe hesitate to drink as much because we tend towards more urination. No, do not let that stop you. Actually, when you don't gulp your water, that will help it be maintained in the body. And, take 7 sips or so and then wait a little bit and take more. And I know men can have issues because of prostate enlargement and so on, but you need your water, okay? It's very, very important. When we urinate, our urine should be pale so that we're drinking adequate amount of water, okay? All right, so amazing water facts. 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated and don't even know it, okay? They're not aware and perceptive of that. And we had a physical therapist, and he would see the guests at the end of the week, the first week, and some of the guests would benefit so much from his therapy. And they said, we should see him right when we come in the program. So I talked to Joe, and he said, Mary, I don't want to see them the first day or two. You know why? He said, when they come on and they get on a good diet, and they're drinking their water, and they're walking, he said, they respond so much better to my therapy. And I thought that was a unique thing that he said. Lack of water is one of the number one trigger of daytime fatigue. You know that the top 10 reason why people visit their practitioner is because they're fatigued? They don't usually have the time or understanding of the simple laws of health to help them question that person. How much water are you drinking? How much sleep are you getting? What is your diet like? Because some of those things might be able to help them to see what the real issue is. Okay, so generally 8 to 10 glasses of water daily eases even your back and joint pain in most people. Now, we won't be able to go into the depths of the laws of health. I'm sure many of you have heard them. But do you know that our body produces a natural painkiller every night? Yes. And you can handle moderate to medium even pain by getting this in those hours that were mentioned by Derrick, those 2 hours before midnight. We call them the hours of power, between like on daylight savings time now from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. You produce what we call arginine vasotosin. And these, among the other 3 hormones, melatonin, serotonin, epithelium, they all have very important benefit to your health, okay? And that arginine vasitocin produces this natural painkiller, and the next day you get a waste product from it. You got to exercise at least 1 hour to get rid of that waste product in order for you to get another one tonight. So how many of you want to have a natural painkiller tonight? Anybody? All right, a few of you. The rest of you will live in pain? No, you don't do that. Okay, thirst means you're dehydrated. So when we get to that point, we really are dehydrated. We're trying to emphasize the importance of internal, external use of the water. A 2% drop in body water can trigger fuzzy short-term memory loss, trouble with basic math, and difficulty focusing on a printed page. So we're going to go to external hot and cold treatments. You can have the very short and very hot and cold. So we might apply like a hot, what we call fomentation, like 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. And that will bring that vascular activity into play. And then the cold reconstricts that blood vessels underneath the skin, and then you alternate that. Okay, sustained heat, I mean, we don't generally like to stay too long with heat, like 20 minutes or so, because that can also cause more inflammation. Okay, so it's stimulating, and prolonged moderate heat is more of a sedative. Okay, so we would take a warm bath. We call it tepid bath, 98 degrees. And I will mention it at this point, regarding hypertension. For our patients with hypertension, in order to also bring down the blood pressure in relationship to what she speaks about, we will do a hot foot bath. That means, depending on if you're not a diabetic, we might do from like 104 to even 108 degrees, and put your feet in hot water, preferably up to the calves, and do it for 20 minutes to at least a half an hour. I've seen people's blood pressure change almost 20, sometimes even 40 points. I mean, that's a large amount. Mostly it's like 20 points on both sides, or at least on one side. And even if you don't get a response right away, the vascular activity is changing, so that it's going to improve the blood pressure long term also. I've seen if people on a trip, even if they can't get a foot bath, put their wrists underneath the water and do like a hot application that way. Okay, prolonged, very hot, of course, is more exhausting. We're not advocating that. So effects of hydrotherapy, one of the effects of it is that it increases the ability of the white blood cells to fight disease. We've done what we call fever therapies, where we will increase the body's temperature by people getting in a hot tub. Of course, those are based on conditions and under supervision and care of those that have had proper training. And that this will bring more white blood cells out into activity. We get them up to a fever and hold that for a while, because the fever is a friend as long as it's not out of control. Okay, that's the way the body fights infection, or one of the ways. Equalizes circulation throughout the body. So again, we're improving circulation that way. It really relieves congestion of the internal organs, such as the hot foot bath can help relieve a common cold. Okay? And it increases local circulation or blood flow. Okay? We're all familiar with things which would improve it that way. It promotes sweating and an increased toxin elimination. This is important when it comes for us to detox people off of tobacco, alcohol. We have done saunas, Russian steam bath, and so on, and we can actually see the nicotine on the sheets. I mean, the yellow that comes out. And so you're quickening the process of detoxing while they're making the changes with their diet and so on. And it helps that suffering period. Okay, it increases bactericidal antibody production. It increases the elimination of bacteria and toxins. And it promotes relaxation. So there's, the foot bath, the warm, tepid bath. Those all things promote relaxation. You could put a little bit of Epsom salts for that magnesium to relax the person, maybe a little bit of lavender oil if you're using that for them to relax at nighttime. You can see one of the treatments, and we'll demonstrate this tomorrow. This is a little bit more involved, but it has its place when people have pneumonia or other major concerns that you could address this way. So you're putting the feet in hot water, you're having applications of hot and cold on the chest, and if they have more involvement in the upper respiratory, you might even be doing it on the sinus. This becomes almost like acrobats. If you've ever done it on somebody, you know, you're changing the face, you're changing the chest, you're really moving. Now, do you notice one thing that these treatments afford that maybe modern medicine doesn't afford anymore? What's that? Time with the patient, right? I'll tell you an interesting story I had and see how God was in it. We had a lady come to our program in the Lifestyle Center in Colorado. I was also doing the cooking. And we had a hot-cold shower off in the back off of the cooking area. And the guests, we gave them freedom to use sometimes the jacuzzi and the shower. Well, this lady had come for weight loss. And all of a sudden, I'm in the kitchen, I hear this bam against the wall. I run in there, she was falling, and I came behind her. She was a larger woman, and she collapsed and almost hit really hard the tile. But in the meantime, her leg got caught under her, and I couldn't get out because of her weight very well. We didn't have anybody else that I could yell to help me. And I pulled her knee up, and it got released, but I could see it had changed like color. So I thought, you know, you don't want to say to people, you know, put things in their mind about, you know, because sometimes you get aches and pains when they're really not there. But I knew it. We better watch out, and we had to treat her afterwards. But this woman, I thought, Lord, of all the women, you know, she had to fall. She can't walk now, and she's here for weight loss, and it looked like this was a big loss. But every day, apart from the cold applications for the inflammation, which you do, you know, right away, like the 20 minutes on, off, we started doing hot and cold on her. But it gave me a time to really be with her, praying. Well, this woman, she had been involved in spiritualism, seances, and these things, and she had a lot of questions. We had talked, and I believe more importantly, even than her weight loss, was what God wanted to accomplish on her stay there. And even that accident, you know, he could use that so that we could have that one-to-one time. And I've heard stories from children that have been raised with this kind of practice, hydrotherapy. They remember not just the hot and cold or how it shocked them, but their time with their parents and, you know, the special time that they had. And even these children I talked about, children are able to do these things and to learn them to help themselves and to help others. Respiratory conditions, you can use it for chest colds, influenza, bronchitis. This was a treatment they did in the epidemic flu, I should say the flu pandemic that was in the early 1900s. Abdominal conditions, and I will say this, through prayer. You always do your best. You know, we cooperate with the Lord. We ask him for healing. Well, like Joy mentioned there, we pray for some miracle, and he brings some simple remedy to our mind. And we pray in faith and do our part, trusting God's hand in this. And I'm sure these nurses and those applied them in faith and in prayer. Fatigue, general toning up of the system and circulation. We can use salt glows. How many of you have ever had a salt glow? No, 2 or 3 people. It's wonderful. You wet the body down in a shower. You take salt, like the rock salt, and you put a little bit of oil or lavender oil, and then you rub that body down with salt. It's a great tonic. When we were in the islands, it was just so hot down there, and other times, and we would do this treatment, and we just felt revived. Okay, and then to relieve post-op pain and help prevent complications, we had a lady come in and had a hysterectomy, I think it was, there at Wildwood. She had to go in town. She came back on the floor, and we did plastic over the abdominal area and then do hot and cold applications, mild. When the surgeon saw her, he said, I have never seen such quick healing as I've seen on this woman. So that was a blessing to hear that. Okay, in this case, maybe a portable towel steamer is used, a steamer basket, steamer pot. Again, it looks a little involved, but there's other ways to do it. You can even use a microwave and even a turkey roaster without the turkey in it. Okay. And this is the simple one, the hot foot bath we mentioned. Now, you can just do it even without the blankets, but this is a little bit more involved where you're putting their feet in hot water and continuing that application for that 20 minutes to half an hour. And you can wrap them in the blanket. We've even put like a hot fomentation on the kidney to help to be able to bring the blood pressure down that way in addition to the feet in the hot water. And you can see a little bit better picture here. But you can also use it for a headache. It's one of the better things for headaches. By the way, getting your water down, these things might resolve some issues with the headache right away, but you might go to this second step. Chest congestion, pelvic congestion, women that have cramps. This is a great thing to help with your cramping. Stopping a nosebleed, believe it or not, okay? One of the ways. Even anxiety and stress. How many of us felt really good when we put our feet in hot water? Like you just been able to have a hard day, you're under a lot of stress. It even sounds relaxing right now, doesn't it? Okay, and even for the common cold, we mentioned that earlier. The Russian steam bath, we've used it for rheumatoid arthritis, for detoxing, for your colds or your flu, and also as a sedative effect. And you can see here, they have little fiberglass containers you can use as Russian steam, and now you can even buy them on the market, little tents that you can use to do a Russian steam bath. And they even have on the market, it's almost like a plastic shower curtain that has a little drawstring. You could put it over a chair, use like a tea kettle, with safety there, and do quite a nice job. Okay, then you'll see contrast showers. We can do our own hot and cold shower on our own. We have a 12-head shower at our facility, but a cold bath can help the muscles, tendons, and tissues, and also it can reduce fatigue and cramping and more endurance. But doing the hot, generally we do like 3 minutes of hot, 30 seconds of cold, depending on what we're using it for, and that really helps the immune system really get a big boost. This is something that you can do to avoid getting sick, or when you do get sick, is to take something like that. Whoops, you want to go that way? Whoa. No wonder they're so hardy up there, right? Okay, all right. So that's going over briefly what Hydro is about. Again, we'll be demonstrating some of these items tomorrow for you and helping you in that regard. And I believe that we'll have another little, yes, question. I think the plan is for us to show you just like a dry run how we would do the treatments. And so we'll be using our own equipment. I don't know, that was... What's that? I'm sorry, I can't hear. We'll have our own equipment. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? No? Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? When you're trying to, to cleanse? Okay, generally we're using it oftentimes on our cancer patients, where we get them in a tub of hot water from 104 and work them up to maybe even 108 degrees or 110 degrees. I think I'm understanding to answer your question that way. And then depending on the health of that person, we might hold them there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then either do a cool down or wrap them so they can have their temperature come down gradually, but this is to really strengthen their immune system and to actually kill out the virus, and to help those systems. But generally we use it in that respect. We might use it for some of these other conditions. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Generally for the detox, if it's more like cleansing, we're using like the Russian steam bath for that kind of program. So you're getting a lot of sweating.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mira. Did you appreciate that? All right. All right, I know you've been sitting for quite a while. Why don't we go ahead and stand? What's coming up next? The information that we're sharing with you, go ahead and stand. The information that we're sharing you if adhered to, can save your life. And we're going to be sharing some more information here that's critical, whether you're young or old. I'm going to invite my wife to come up and do, what was that? What did she do earlier? Onward Christian Soldier. Is that okay? All right. But you don't want me leading out on it at all. And then we're going to get started here right away. And if...
Come we that love the Lord, and let our joys be known. Join in a song with sweet accord. Join in a song with sweet accord. And thus around the throne, and thus around the throne. We are marching to Zion. Beautiful, beautiful Zion. We're marching upward to heavenly Zion, that beautiful city of God.
All right. You may feel free to go ahead and have a seat, or you can stand up if you'd like. I'm going to ask that they switch me over and keep me on the screen as much as possible if you can, so that we don't... I'm going to go through this steadily, but I'd like everybody to see what we're doing. Oh, by the way, as was mentioned with light, the training program, if you'd like to learn more things, we're going to talk about it a little bit more tomorrow. All of you have if you just keep the picture imagery on the screen for me, because I'm utilizing it as we go along. And yeah, they're tired of looking at me anyway. So if you look at the screen here, I'm going to go ahead and give you my email address once again. Again, those of you that respond to my email address, I will send you information. Some of the information that I'll send, you'll have access to all the recipes, you'll have access to some tips, and you'll also have access to information about Wildwood, information about light, and how you can continue to learn on your own, because we're just giving you a taste of what it's all about, okay? But we want you to be skilled in it. It's going to take some effort to sit down, study, read. Maybe we talk on the phone or have a Zoom conference call, whatever the case may be. But we want you to be well educated. Is that okay? All right. So everybody has the address? Email address? Okay. So, as most of you, we talked about this morning, I am from Jamaica. And living in the United States for many years, we have been on many mission trips. And one of the mission trips was to Jamaica. And I took with me... there was a team of us from Wildwood, and in that group was a doctor, Dr. Henley. He's now, I think, almost 90 years old, but he has been one of my mentors. And he came with me to Spanish Town. Anybody know Spanish Town? All right. Oh, okay, excellent. If you've never been there to Jamaica, you might want to put that on your bucket list. So anyway, we went on a mission trip, but during most mission trips, you have some time to do a little bit of a excursion. See that if you've never been there before, you would like to look at the natural beauty of the island. He wanted to see the university that I went to, which is now Northern Caribbean University. At the time, it was Westerners College. Anyway, so we didn't have a car. We went there with a group. They dropped us off in Spanish Town. We worked with the conference office there. That's where we were based. So we had to take a bus. Now, a bus is a minibus. But it was one of those, coaster buses. It's a little larger than a van. And so we said, okay, we had some time. So we went on our trip to Northern Caribbean University. Now, follow very carefully. I'm not talking about health, but I'm stimulating you right now, like we did this morning, right? I'm giving you another opportunity. Is that okay? I'm giving you another opportunity. So mental gymnastics so that you can appreciate what I'm sharing. Is that okay? So we got on the bus. The bus was empty. He and I were the first persons on, and there were several other buses, so it took a little while to get the bus filled. So we sat in the back of the bus, he and I. And then we were sitting there, and then a few more people came in and sat. And it was a good few minutes. And he said, wow, why aren't we leaving? You know, normally you get on the bus, it goes on schedule, right? I said, no, they want to put a few more passengers on, so we have to wait till the bus gets a few more passengers. It started filling up. It started getting to the point where we were the first two on the bus. And then a group of three, follow carefully, a group of three came on the bus. Are you with me? And then 5 more people came on the bus. And he said, okay, we have lots of people on the bus now. Why can't? Because it's a small little bus. He said, we'll soon leave, man. We'll soon be leaving. 10 more people came on the bus. Follow. Are you lost already? Okay. So 10 more people came on the bus. Now it's standing room only. And we're ready to go, right? And the bus didn't leave yet. So 2 more people came on the bus. And finally the bus left. Okay? So the bus started taking off and it went to the first stop. Picked up 3 more people. And my friend was like, this is crazy. Where are they going to sit? Where are they going to come? They were hanging on the door. All right? Okay, so now the bus was going up the road, and then it went to the next stop, and 2 people came off. Nobody else came on. It went to another stop just around the corner, and there was a large crowd of people there, and 5 people squeezed on. Nobody came off yet. It went on a little bit further, and then finally, this was like a big little community, city area, and 10 people came off the bus. And finally, he said, "Ooh, I can breathe now." And then, so the bus, after they came off, the bus went, and it went up a hill, and it started, just a little shaking thing to get up the hill, put it in a low gear, and it was going up onto the hill. It got up to the top, where they picked up 3 people. Follow carefully. And then it started going down, and it was like you could feel the breeze coming in, the window was open, it's going down the hill, it got to the bottom of the hill. I think I'm going to ask you a question. You've been paying attention? Are you ready? Okay. How many stops did the bus make? Okay, you get the idea. Again, you assumed you know where I was going. You had a preconceived idea. I set you up for this, so don't feel badly. I set you up. But you need to be aware that oftentimes we miss the main point of the message. So as we go through this, let's try to learn something. Let's try to allow the Holy Spirit to lead us and let Him take control. Is that okay? All right, you did well. I'll give you another opportunity, maybe another time, the next time, okay? If we get another chance. All right, so let's jump on here. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. We just talked about that. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall what? Direct thy paths. What's that? Why is this? It's on the back. What's happening? Oh, here we go. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. We talked about that, right? Fear the Lord and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel and marrow to thy bones. All right. Now, I'm going to take you on a journey now. And this is mostly a true story, partly a true story. But I'm going to give you a case study. A friend of mine at my church, I'm going to tell you, we made this up based on what he said. But I want you to get the lesson out of it. It's a typical scenario. Okay, I'm going to give you a description of what happened with the ambulance services, the EMS and the paramedics. And I want you to tell me what the diagnosis is. I'm going to give you options, okay? So don't feel too bad. I'll give you A, B, C, D, and you pick which one it is, okay? So you're going to have to pay attention. All right, what is a diagnosis? So at 5:45 a.m., the unit is dispatched for a 50-year-old man with chest pain. The paramedics and the EMS, they proceed to the scene with a response time of approximately 8 minutes. It took for them to get there, and the hospital was about 40 miles away. When they got there, this middle-aged man, how old was he? Very good. You guys are really paying attention. 50 years old, and he identifies himself as the patient. The patient is diaphoretic, meaning he's sweating, he's anxious, and he's clenching his fist against the center of his chest. All right, this is what they see. So his level of consciousness, these are things I'm sharing with you that they assess. He was conscious, he was alert, he knew who he was, he knew where he was and what time of day it was, but he was very restless and anxious. And am I going too fast? Okay. His chief complaint was that his chest feels tight and he really felt weak. You getting the picture? All right. His breathing, his airway was patent. I mean, he wasn't being choked or anything, but his respiratory rate was slightly elevated. At the time, it was unlabored. He wasn't struggling to breathe. His oxygen saturation was 97%. That was without oxygen. His circulation, his pulse, his radial pulse at the wrist was rapid. It was a little fast, but it was strong and it was regular. His skin was cool, but it was clammy, and he looked a little bit on the pale side. You getting the picture? All right. When did it begin? It woke him up from his sleep, and the pressure in his chest, it was constant. Nothing that he did made it better or worse, and his chest felt very tight. The pressure stayed in his chest. It didn't radiate to any other area. It was just right in his chest. And then they went on to find out. It began about an hour before they got there. Until he waited. Remember, it took 8 minutes to get there. What interventions did he do? He didn't do anything. He just simply tolerated it and then called the ambulance when he felt concerned. There's no indication of a traumatic injury. He didn't fall or anything of that nature. It wasn't tender. And when he breathed, both sides of his chest extended, and his abdomen came out. It was symmetrical. Nothing was uneven. And his veins looked normal. They weren't distended. So, I know I went through that quickly. What was the diagnosis? These are the options. Can you see them? Pericarditis, aortic dissection, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, acute cholecystitis, and acute coronary syndrome. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one really quickly so that you can make an intelligent decision. Are you ready? All right. You notice I'm going a little quickly. You're going to have to keep up with me, but you did so well on that mental gymnastics. It woke you up, so I know you can handle this. So, pericarditis. This is a swelling, or is basically the inflammatory process of the pericardium, which is that the sac surrounding the heart, and it gets irritated, it gets a little bit swollen, and it brings chest pain, and because of the irritation when the layers rub against each other. You following me? All right, aortic dissection. If you look at the heart, you see the heart right in the middle there, and that red walking cane type imagery, that is the aorta. And you notice that dark part at the top, the ascending aorta, gets damaged. Okay, it's a serious condition where there's a tear and blood gets in between the layers of the tissue, the lining. All right, that is an aortic dissection. Aortic dissection, and that can be, as I mentioned, life-threatening. Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. I know people may pronounce that differently, but essentially this is known. Let's see. Can you see this imagery pretty good there? If you notice the red on the extreme left, you notice the shape of your left ventricle. It has a pear-type shape, but look at the ventricle in the middle. It's a little fatter. Do you notice that? That is distorted, so the blood, the muscles are not able to pump the blood efficiently through the ventricles into the aorta. Are you with me? Okay, so this causes a major problem. Now, this can be brought about. Where's my imagery there? This can be brought about by stress. It's known sometimes as the broken heart syndrome. Broken heart syndrome. And so stress does really have a negative impact upon your organs. Acute cholecystitis. What is that? Inflammatory process of what? The gallbladder. Now, this is very rare for it to be what I'm going to describe, but it can mimic a pain in the heart. Very rare. It can also show abnormalities on the cardiac monitor. All right, like I said, it's very rare, but copious sign, and you may have bradycardia and some symptoms that mimic a heart problem. Well, like I said, it's very rare, but it does occur. And then we have acute coronary syndrome, a term used to describe a range of conditions that's associated with a sudden reduced blood flow to the heart muscle. Now, do you see the heart itself? There is a blood vessel that comes from the aorta that goes back to the heart to feed that tissue. And what happens is, if it's not perfusing well, you have what's known as a heart attack and or myocardial infarction. All right, that was a quick overview. What is the diagnosis? Who says number one? All right, we have somebody for number one. Who says number two? Okay, nobody? Oh, wow. Okay, number three. Okay, we have a few. Okay, excellent, excellent. I appreciate your participation. Everybody participates, right? Number four. Okay, I have a few there. Okay, and who says number five? Okay, we have quite a few who say number five. Now, whatever answer you gave, that's showing that you're thinking, okay? But we have to be able to diagnose exactly what the problem is. So don't feel badly. You guys did really, really well. He had an acute coronary syndrome or a heart attack. As serious as a heart attack. It was so most of you got that right. I don't know, I probably threw some of you off because I gave you so much information. But I wanted you to grasp that picture. Now, let me tell you what happened here. In 72 hours, he was in the operating room having open heart surgery. Now, we call that open heart surgery, but it's really a coronary artery bypass, a graft. And that, what that does, if you look at the left, you see the red and the blue, let's just say on the coming down, feeding the heart. You get that picture? And there's some blockage, plaque blockage. You see the two. Oh, wait a minute. I can do it. Hold on. Let me just show you. This is much easier here. I oftentimes forget to use that. Okay, right here. Can you see that on the screen? Okay, that little point there and that little point right here, what happens over here? It's blocked. What happens is it will kill this part. It won't kill it, but this will die because of lack of oxygen and blood to that area. And what happens is, with a coronary artery bypass graft, they will take a blood vessel, either from the chest, in one of the mammary arteries, or the saphenous vein in the leg. If you've ever seen somebody that had open heart surgery, or if you ever had it yourself, sometimes you see a large scar coming up their leg. That's where they got that vessel from, and they will bypass the area that is blocked so that they can feed the heart. Is that making sense? You're getting the picture, okay? All right. Why does this happen? What causes blocked blood vessels? I'm going to suggest that there are two main causes. There may be other things that bring this about, but what I'm going to suggest at this point here, for the sake of this discussion, is either a blood clot, where there's a clot in the blood that got stuck in that vessel, or cholesterol. What two things can possibly cause a heart attack? Cholesterol or a blood clot. Exactly right. There are other things that can do that, but that's what we're looking at today. What I would like to specifically address is the cholesterol. The cholesterol. We will look at cholesterol. Is it changing up here? Okay. So we're going to be taking a look at what cholesterol really is, to kind of define it. The function of cholesterol, does it have a function? Why do we even have it? Understanding the numbers associated when you go to your doctor and they draw blood, that's very, very informative to your primary care provider or whoever, or specialist, whoever is looking at the numbers, but to your doctor. Basically, they're able to determine and detect. It helps them with their assessment process. The problem with cholesterol, and also and the main thing here, why we are all here, is what can we do to prevent dangerous levels? That's what you all want to hear about, right? Like I said, this can save your life or the life of somebody you care for. All right. So what is cholesterol? What is cholesterol? So read this definition with me. A waxy-like substance produced by the liver. Produced by the what? Liver, that helps form cell membranes. It helps form what? Cell membranes. It makes hormones, and it makes bile to aid digestion of fat that we take in. With that definition, let me ask you this question. Is cholesterol a good thing or a bad thing? Good and bad, right? I hear both. I hear some saying good and some saying bad. So let me ask you this question: is helping to form the cell membranes, is that a good thing? Absolutely, that is a good thing. Is it important that we make hormones? Absolutely. Is it important that it makes bile to aid the digestion of fats? Absolutely. So again, is cholesterol a good thing or a bad thing? Who designed the body to produce cholesterol? God designed it. We have cholesterol in our bodies, right? But the problem is that even though it plays such a vital role in our overall health and well-being, too much cholesterol in the bloodstream, this is where we have the problem. Too much blood in the bloodstream, let me start this over again. Too much cholesterol, the level of cholesterol in our bloodstream is where we have the problem, right? And this is what we need to be aware of. So, again, I'm going to ask you another question. I'm going to give you another opportunity. I'm going to give you the answer, and then I'm going to ask you the question. Do you think you can handle that one? And Dr. Marcio, they didn't do too well on the first two questions, so I'm going to give them the answer. Is that okay? And then I'm going to ask the question. Is that fair? I wish my teacher did do it in school, but not quite the way I wanted it to be done. Okay, so this is going to be a question, but I'll get there in a second. Just remember this, because I'm telling you what I'm getting to. There are two sources of cholesterol. How many sources? Cholesterol is made by the body, and it takes the form of dietary cholesterol. So it's made by the body, and we can also take in dietary cholesterol, simply meaning that we can eat it, right? You got it? How many forms? Two cholesterols. Now, two forms of cholesterol coming in the body. Now, keep in mind that dietary cholesterol is found only in animal foods, all right? Dietary cholesterol is found where? In animal foods. Plants do not contain cholesterol. It's as simple as that. I'm giving you the answer, okay? Dietary cholesterol comes from where? Dietary cholesterol. Animal products. Plants do not contain cholesterol. You got it? It's as simple as that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to ask you the question shortly. Bear with me. We're okay? Oh, you're just checking something. All right, thank you. Is this Wayne without your hat? You know, everybody, he has been so helpful to me. In fact, I tell you what, this jump drive that I'm using, in my rush to get here, I think I left my jump drive with all my notes and everything at home. Can you believe that? But anyway, in a mad dash and rush, he was able to get me out of a tight situation, and I was able to get all my notes and take care of it. So thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause. I'll let him do what he needs to do here now. So, let's move on here. So, secondary sources of cholesterol come only from animal products. Now, the liver, what? What part of the body? The organ, the liver, manufactures all the cholesterol that the body needs. So our body actually makes cholesterol. That's why we can have the cell membrane production. That's why we can have the bile being produced to break down the fats and also producing the hormones, right? Now, most Western diets provide an additional approximately 400 milligrams of cholesterol per day, all right? In the standard American diet, we probably get approximately 400 milligrams per day, and the dietary cholesterol is the cause for concern. So, like I said, I'm going to ask you another question here. This is coming up. I'm setting it up for you. So pay attention here. Back in Jamaica, all right, with my friend, Dr. Herschel Henley, we went to a friend's house, and we're cooking. I'm creating a story now, okay? Not necessarily true, but a general principle. we went out and they were fixing a beautiful vegetarian meal for us. And then, of course, they had chicken and all the other things there that go with it, right? It wasn't just for us there. But so they had some ripe plantain, and they were frying the plantain, and they had it on a skillet over the open flame. You get the picture? And so they're talking, they're having a good time, they're taking the plantain out, but there was the one batch of plantain, it started to burn. And you could see the smoke and you could smell it. It's starting to burn. Now, we didn't want to waste any food. I mean, this nice plantain in the oil, right? It's being burned. The oil is getting a little burned and the plantain is there. All right? Should we eat that because, no, let me rephrase it. This is the question. When we eat that, how does that affect our cholesterol? Does it cause our cholesterol to go up or it doesn't affect it at all? It causes it to go up, right? Everybody agree? Dr. Marcia? I gave the congregation the answer. I told you I'm giving you the answer, and you're still, let's think about it. Where do plants have cholesterol? Cholesterol, it comes from what? Animal products. Now, it may cause other problems. I'm not saying that you should have it. It's just that it's not your cholesterol level. Man, I'm going to have to give you another. What's that? I guess I should have told you what kind of oil, right? It was olive oil. All right. You get a C. You get a C for that. Actually, you get an A because you thought through the process. So everybody got an A. But you get the idea, right? You get, okay, so they're good. We're going to continue. I'm not going to start over, okay? Yeah, you heard what she said, and like most oils, but olive oil, the heating temperature, it's best not to take it to a too high level for a prolonged period of time. So be careful. That's a very good point, and that's a whole other discussion that we can have as you continue to study in this work, is heating and burning oil. So, all right, you guys did fantastic. Let's jump into this now. Blood cholesterol level, risk detection. When you're detecting a risk for heart disease, the cholesterol level plays a significant role as a factor in determining a person's risk for heart disease. So what I'm sharing here today, if you pay attention and write some of these numbers down that I'm going to share with you, you will be able to determine your level of risk the next time you get your blood work drawn, or if you have a lipid, it's called a lipid panel, or on your next doctor's visit, maybe ask if you can have a copy of your lipid panel, and if you write these numbers down, you can see where you stand, okay? Just one little area, this is one portion of the whole process. Okay, so this is exciting, this excites me, but according to the CDC, as of 2021, heart disease was still the leading cause of death in the United States. So it's significant, wouldn't you say? If it's a leading cause of lifestyle-related deaths, I would think that all of us should have an idea what it is and how to prevent it. So let's take a look here. Because it is recommended that everyone, and it's recommended, by the way, that everyone over the age of 20 should know what their blood cholesterol level is, your HDL, your LDL, we're going to look at that. The higher the cholesterol level, the greater the risk for heart disease. Now, I know there's always a debate among the medical profession as to the validity of some of these things that we're looking at, but as a general rule, this is a standard, okay? So let's take a look at some random food items as we progress here. We're looking for cholesterol in food. Can you see that imagery up there? We see some plant-based foods, and how much cholesterol do you see? There's 0. Milk, of course, now we're getting a little bit of a mixture. There's a little bit of cholesterol in milk, and that's non-fat milk, and a little bit more in the whole milk. Then as we look at egg white, the white of the egg, there's 0 cholesterol in there. With the yolk, one large egg, about 200, just over 200 milligrams of cholesterol, and so forth. Let's take a look at, let's jump down here to some animal products. Now, animal products have the cholesterol, but what's significant? Look at the bottom 4, the organ meats. Organ meats are very high in cholesterol. Now, I've never eaten any of those at the bottom there, but I know it's like a delicacy for many people, but very significant in the level of cholesterol. Now, let's take a look at this. It's known as a silent killer, one of the silent killers, because by the time you know about it, it's pretty far progressed. That's why we need to keep track of our blood cholesterol. So how does high cholesterol cause heart attacks? Let me see if I can get my little indicator here back up again, my laser pointer. Okay, if you take a look, I don't know why it's not showing here. Let me try another one. Let's see, my laser pointer is, it's not working. All right, no worries. Let me get a highlighter. Okay, okay, here we go. You see that this, if you take a look at these five circles here, it's like a longitudinal section of view of a blood vessel if you're looking directly at it. You've cut it in half and you're looking at it. You follow? Okay, here there's about a 10% occlusion. You can't really see anything, but as we go to the right, we have 20%, 40%, 60, and 70% occlusion. And generally speaking, anywhere between 20 and 35, 40, even a little bit higher, you may not have any symptoms whatsoever, but the blood flow begins to decline or decrease somewhere about 40%, somewhere in that, just general range here. You get the idea? Everybody following? Are you seeing my point? Are you seeing my pointer? Yeah? No? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm seeing it on my screen. So just feel free to communicate with me. Let me see. All right, we'll skip that. Let me just point it. So if you look where it says no symptoms, all right, the blood flow is still coming through, even though it's diminishing as it gets small. The lumen, the area inside, gets smaller. But as it gets to be about 60%, where the plaque is building up, do you see that? And then 70%, somewhere around there, you begin to feel angina pectoris or chest pain. And then the potential for a heart attack increases, and where it almost fades off, you have congestive heart failure. Just to kind of give you an idea of a simplified diagrammatic view here. So most heart attacks are caused by plaque buildup, P-L-A-Q-U-E, plaque buildup. This is made typically from a combination of cholesterol and fat. And as the plaque builds up along the wall of the arteries that supply the heart muscle, the blood flow becomes more and more restricted. It continues until we get to the point where we have a congestive heart failure, heart attack, and potentially life-threatening, where you actually die. So what is plaque? Plaque builds up along the arterial walls, but plaque is actually a good thing. Well, let me rephrase it. It's a very important mechanism of action when the lining of the blood vessel becomes damaged, and this could be from too much sugar in the blood, your diabetes disrupting the wall. It could be from cholesterol buildup and trying to break through. When the body recognizes that there's damage to the lining of the wall, it begins to put like a patch, a tire patch. You see that little dark area on the right bottom? Okay, there's damage. You see at the bottom right corner, you can see the damage, and the plaque is like putting a patch over that area to protect it. So it's actually a good thing. Plaques are like tire patches. This is the body's response. So, but the thing you need to keep in mind, oxidized cholesterol, the compounds of oxidized cholesterol actually elevates the danger of the cholesterol in the blood. All right? Just bear with me. It may be a little confusing, but just bear with me. Oxidized cholesterol, what is that? When cholesterol is exposed to the air, by combining with the oxygen, it becomes oxidized. I'll give you an example. When you milk a cow, you get the milk that's in the udder of the cow is not oxidized, but once it hits the atmosphere and it interacts with oxygen, it becomes oxidized. All right, just to kind of give you an idea. And even a small amount of oxidized substances in the arteries can be very damaging. All right. Some other compounds that are oxidized cholesterol or food products really, pancake mixes, custard mixes, what else? Parmesan cheese, lard, ice cream. Let me just go back to the Parmesan cheese. A cheese of any nature. That's why we try to recommend plant-based foods. Did you enjoy the cheese on the lasagna today? All right, that was from cashew. So there was no dairy in there, so it was actually more healthy for you. They didn't have the oxidized cholesterol. The same thing with your ready-made pancake mixes. The same thing with lard. Of course, we shouldn't be touching lard anyway because we know better than that. That often comes from animal products that we should not be eating. Ice cream. These products have oxidized cholesterol. All right, let's take a look at the different types of cholesterol in the bloodstream. There are two main types of cholesterol, and you're familiar with them, the HDL and the LDL. And because triglycerides, which is like a fat, and cholesterol cannot dissolve in the blood, they circulate throughout your body with the help of proteins that transport the lipids, and these carriers, the carrier itself that takes these through the bloodstream, you have the high density and you have the low density, right? The heaviest carrier is the HDL, or your high density lipo or lipo. I like to say lipoprotein. All right, you're getting more than you're getting quite a bit of information here. Am I losing you? I'm losing a few people. Okay, we're going to pull you back right into it now. Now, pay close attention at this segment here. Now, ready? The HDL, or your high density lipoprotein, is often referred to as what? As a good cholesterol, right? Or healthy cholesterol. The reason for that is because your HDL is protective. One of the functions is to remove cholesterol from the arteries and then take it to the liver where it can be made into bile. This is why the higher your HDL, the higher your what? This is very important now. It's going to make sense in a minute. The higher your HDL is, the better the protection. All right? So that's why we have the term good cholesterol. So the studies show that men, this was done on men, that men with levels of 75 milligrams of percentage of cholesterol, of HDL rather, the HDL at 75, important number, write this down, HDL of 75 or greater is the less likely that you will experience a heart attack. HDL, we're looking for what number? 75 or greater is what we're actually looking for. And I would probably venture to say that most of us in here, I'm not sure, but on average, most people are way below an HDL of 75. But we're looking for optimal health. Whatever we're talking about here today, we're looking to take it to another level of health. Now, a simple way to estimate your risk for a heart attack or heart disease is to look at the cholesterol ratio. Cholesterol what, everybody? Ratio. And how do you determine that? You take your total cholesterol and you divide it by your HDL. Are you with me? Quick example. Oh, well, let me share this information with you, then we'll look at an example. The American Heart Association recommends a rate below 5 for the ratio. A ratio below 5 is what the American Heart Association recommends. However, a study done by the Framingham Heart Study, one of the things that Dr. Marcia mentioned this morning, one of the things that they discovered was that a ratio of 3.5 or a ratio lower than 3.5 significantly reduces your risk for heart disease, whereas a ratio of 9 puts you on a very extreme, dangerous level. So we're looking for, if we're looking to prevent heart disease, what would be a good ratio that you're looking for? Something below what? 3.5. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. When you look at your numbers, let's take a look at this. Let's say your cholesterol level was 200 and your HDL was 75. How would you find your ratio? Divide it, right? Let's take a look. As we divide it, it would come up to what? 2.7. Is that a dangerous level or is that a good level? It's a very good level. Your risk for heart disease is significantly reduced. Now, let me share something else with you. Take a look at this. Let's do another example. The same cholesterol level of 200. Cholesterol level is the same, but let's say your HDL was 20. Using the same formula, what would your ratio be? What would your ratio be? 10. Do you see how important it is to have your HDL at a higher level? And there's a reason for that. We probably can't get into all of that now, as I see I'm running out of time here. We're going to wrap it up here in a few minutes. So keep in mind, when you get your numbers back, and by that I mean your lab work from your doctor, look for your cholesterol, look for your HDL, look for your LDL, and then calculate your ratio. Oftentimes it gives you your ratio. It actually calculates it for you. It's just a calculation. All right? You still with me? All right. Is this helpful so far? Okay. All right. So a lighter cholesterol carrier is the LDL. It is commonly referred to as the what? Bad cholesterol. Let's see why. Is it really bad? Remember we talked about cholesterol earlier and we said it was a good thing, right? So is it really bad? It's not really bad, but I'll show you why it gets the bad name. Because the function of the LDL is to deliver cholesterol to the cells, where it is used to make and help develop your cell membranes or for the synthesis of steroid hormones. This is a good thing. It also determines, that is the LDL, determines the rate at which cholesterol is deposited in the artery walls. And this is where the potential problem is, because the LDL potentially can leave deposits of cholesterol along the artery walls. So to be safe, your cholesterol, your LDL cholesterol should be under 90. Okay, you got that? All right. So let's just take a look at the numbers, and you can write these down or take a picture, either way. According to the CDC, the recommendation is that the cholesterol level should be less than 200. We are not talking about average health. We're talking about optimal health and well-being. So I would like to recommend and play it a bit safer. I'd like to play it safer and have it below 150. It's very attainable to have the cholesterol level below 150. The CDC recommends an LDL of less than 100. Again, playing it safe, I like to get it down to 90 or below. That's your LDL. They recommend an HDL greater than 40. Are you with me? But what did we say we want to get it up to? Oh, man, you're doing well. 75 or higher. If you do not find yourself in this safety zone with a blood cholesterol below 150, don't despair, but it's time to take aggressive action, okay? And we're talking about making simple changes with lifestyle. You can lower your cholesterol level by making some changes in the way you live. Now, as we move on here and get ready to wrap up, I want to take a look at triglycerides just so you have an understanding of that. Your triglycerides should be less than, you see the number? It should be less than 150. And that's triglycerides are basically, it's, as it says here, a compound made up of 3 fatty chains. And it's basically the technical term for the main storage and transport of fat in the body. Now, elevated cholesterols here. How does genetics play with cholesterol and triglycerides and what have you? The reality, my friends, is genetics is an important factor, but the reality is that very few people are genetically predisposed to high levels of cholesterol or high cholesterol. The vast majority of us, the blood cholesterol levels are determined by the dietary factors. Keep that in mind. All right. You heard genetics loads the gun. The decisions we make, the choices, the lifestyle that we live pulls the trigger. It may be some changes that you have to make. All right. What can you do? We're going to wrap it up here with some things that you can do. Practical ways. You ready? Let's take a look. The first thing that I want you to keep in mind is that you want to raise your HDL, lower your LDL. Well, that's one of our main goals. And blood cholesterol levels are largely determined by what we eat. That's correct. But there are some other factors that are involved. If you're serious about lowering your cholesterol levels, then let's take a look at this. And this, my friends, could be the difference between an early death or a long, productive life. If you smoke, you really need to stop. Get help, stop smoking. By the way, if you smoke and drink coffee, coffee drinkers have high levels of homocysteine. If they smoke, it is even higher. And homocysteine is simply an amino acid that the body uses to construct proteins and carry out chemical processes. However, high levels of homocysteine contribute to twice the likelihood of developing clogged arteries. Okay, so it's a very bad combination. So, no more smoking. Next, if you're carrying excess fat on the body, get rid of it. Get down to your ideal body weight. This is a great place to start. If you're going to make some changes. Lose any excess weight that you are carrying. And I jumped there just 1 minute. Let me go back here. Where were we? Just bear with me. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, here's the next slide. Exercise. One way to lose some weight is by exercising daily. We've talked about that. Whether you need to lose weight or not, it is vitally important that we exercise. And then also, according to the CDC, we talked about the guidelines is to get the HDL greater than 40, but we're talking about optimal health, so we want to get it up to what number? 75. A great way to get your HDL going in the right direction is exercise. I have seen this significantly change with the levels of exercise based on the level of your HDL. It is a game changer. Then also eating foods that are high in antioxidants. These are generally found in your plant-based foods that have a lot of color in it. Your red, your blues, like your blueberries, your raspberries, your cherries, things of that nature. And they help to neutralize the free radicals that are floating around in your bloodstream, which are damaging to your blood vessels. All right. I mentioned this before, but it's so important. Let me just share this with you again. The most harmful combination of cholesterol products, oxidized products, was found in custard milk, custard mix, where you have the sugar, you have milk, and you have eggs. This combined is what was one of the most dangerous or potent forms of cholesterol production. What can you think is the most common form of custard that most of us enjoy today? Ice cream. I heard that like right away. You are so right. Unfortunately, you're right. Ice cream. Yeah. All right. Okay. Then you have powdered milk, puddings, prepackaged items with those products in it. So basically, in summary here, eat less fat. Whatever you do, don't miss this point. Saturated fat and trans fats push the liver into overdrive, let me see how to describe this. Pushing your liver into overdrive to produce extra levels of cholesterol. Are you with me? So when you eat even good fats, because of the excessive amounts of fats that you're eating, this could come in the form of nuts. The liver detects this, that it's going to utilize this to make more cholesterol. So even though it's a good thing, your cholesterol level, that's why many vegetarians who are not temperate in some of the foods that they eat still have high levels of cholesterol. Does that make sense? All right. They tell me my time is up. Let me just take 1 more minute. Can I get 1 more minute? 1. Okay. Foods to avoid: your sweets, your sugary products, alcohol, carbohydrates. And I tell you what we'll do. Those of you that register or sign up or ask questions online, I'll give you some opportunity that we can study this together, okay? All right. Add foods to your diet like walnuts, unsaturated fats, avocado, nuts, oils. We've talked about that. And, of course, soluble fiber. I'm going to go ahead and stop here for the sake of time, and we will take a look at this at some other point in our potential time together. Is that okay? I hope this was enough to stimulate your thought processes as you go forward from here. Thank you. sure. Oh, it's too small. Healthy choice. Healthy choice. The number 4. The letter U. The number 2 at gmail.com. That's healthychoice4u2 at gmail.com. If this was beneficial, go ahead and stand with me right where you are. If this was beneficial, stand where you are. I know we're trying to give you as much as we can in the short time that we have, so I know we're probably taxing you a little bit. Would you like to hear a little bit more from Mary as she wraps up with some natural remedies? On herbs, some herbal remedies? Do you think you can handle it? All right. All right. We're going to ask Joy, you want to... Who? Yeah, Joy, let's do that break here. Normally we'll give you like a 15-minute break here, but we're torturing you. I'm sorry. Just bear with us because our time is so limited. We came a long way to give you as much as we could. All right, what are we going to do? Here, take the mic and...
Well, we're going to sing Father Abraham. Anybody knows Father Abraham? Let's go. Father Abraham had many sons. Many sons had Father Abraham. I am one of them, and so are you. So let's just praise the Lord right on. Father Abraham has many sons. Many sons had Father Abraham. I am one of them, and so are you. So are you. So let's just praise the Lord right arm, left arm. Father Abraham has many sons. Many sons had Father Abraham. I am one of them, and so are you. So are you. So let's just praise the Lord right arm, left arm, right foot. Father Abraham has many sons. Many sons. Many sons had Father. We have to cut now. Abraham. Okay, we're gonna do all of them next. One of them, and so are you. So let's just praise the Lord. You may have a seat now.
Okay. That will revive us, right? Amen. Well, we're going to give you a quickie. Have you ever gone on a quick tour of somewhere? This is going to be a 15-minute little class on herbs, hopefully, by God's grace. And we're going to call it Herbs 101, okay? Whoops, let me go backwards. Okay. Are you familiar with this verse from the Bible? I bet you maybe didn't even know it was there. He says, let's read it out loud. He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle and herb for the service of man. Psalms 104, 14 to 15. So we want to look in case of sickness, and this is where herbs fit in. Of course, the cause should be ascertained by looking at the laws of health. Wherein or where have we not violated these laws? Then these unhealthful conditions should be changed and the wrong habits corrected. And then this is, again, where herbs, hydrotherapy, the tweaking of the laws of health all are encompassed in that third one. Then nature is to be what? Assisted, not pushed down, but nature is to be assisted in her effort to expel impurities and to reestablish right conditions in the system. So herbs in their judicious way fit into that category. And a lot of us, maybe some of you that came from the Caribbean or you know how to use bush tea or whatever, you know, you might be familiar with some of these things. So we're going to look at a few categories of herbs and how to use them. Now, there are different ways to use herbs, and you can grow your own, of course. And if you get it in its cut form, it has to be put into water and steeped. You know, steep means you don't have to put it on the stove. Just put it in hot water and let it steep for 20 minutes. That brings out the properties of the herb for the benefit that you want to use it for. You may have a herb that's come from a bark, okay? And that has to be boiled for 20 minutes in order for that property to come out. Now, if the herb has been powdered, though, and you can take it and put it right in water and drink it. That's so it's in a capsule, or if it's in a bag. I like to go the cheaper route, and I just put it in water and I drink it. Okay, so many of you think, well, you don't have to put it in a capsule. You can buy it in a bag, and you can use it that way. Okay, so become familiar with how to use these herbs and keep them in your medicine cabinet, or make a little box, of your home remedies box. But you can see here one of the more common antibiotics, of course, is echinacea. Now, golden seal is very, very expensive right now, so I tend towards using echinacea. But you can see the picture of it here. It's what we call the coneflower. I don't know if you can grow it down here in Florida, but we grow it up in Georgia. And this can be cultivated and can be used, okay? The golden seal, I'll show you a picture of that. That is a more rare and more expensive now on the market. And sometimes you'll see both of these together. And like if someone comes down with a cold on our floor, or myself, I might take 2 capsules. I think that's a half a teaspoon of powder in a capsule. 3 times a day. That you're really hitting the system. And that's what you want to think about with natural remedies. It's sort of like sin. The faster and the harder you hit it, the better off you are. If you let it go, then it becomes more of a problem. And you also want to think to yourself, how can I hit this locally, dealing with the symptom that's local, like my sore throat or my sniffling, but I want to hit it systemically too. I want to strengthen the whole body to fight whatever is going on here, okay? So, that is your golden seal. That's what that looks like. And again, our four parents, they used these things to bring down their blood pressures and to help with different ailments, but many of it has gone out of use. And garlic, as I mentioned before, is a natural antibiotic. If I get sick, I take like 4 cloves of garlic. I blend them in the juice of 2 lemons. That's about 4 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice, high in vitamin C. And I blend it till I get no sediment. And then I add another 2-3 glasses of water to it, and I use that as my water intake. You can do it the same way with blood pressure and bring people's blood pressure down by using that formula. People like to get into maybe a bigger concoctions, which you might have heard during the pandemic, the flu bomb and putting in a pinch of cayenne, but I go to a simple route, especially when I'm sick. I don't feel like doing some of these things. So that's helpful. You might not be familiar with hyssop, but of course we're familiar with the bay leaf. These things are not only used in our cooking, but they have medicinal properties to them. Okay? Of course, our wonderful garlic, right? And there's the picture of the hyssop and the bay leaf, okay? Then we have anti-inflammatories. These are things that every disease process has a component of inflammation. So these are particular ones, and sometimes we don't think of chamomile or chickweed. Chickweed is down by the river and so on. You can get this, and I'll show you pictures of it. But we generally use oregano and rosemary. Yes, those are what you cook with, but you can use them as a tea. They don't taste so great, okay, but they really help decrease the inflammation. Queen of the Meadow is one of the ones that's not as commonly used anymore, but we use burdock root, okay? And I'll show you a few pictures of these. Some people can be allergic to chamomile, but we also use this as a sedative. So some of them might have dual purposes or more than one purpose. Chickweed, you can see that. You can actually eat chickweed. And then antiseptics. We're all familiar with using aloe vera on your burns. Apple balm, eucalyptus is another one. That's a very good one for the respiratory issues. Myrrh and sage, again, oregano and thyme. We think of using that in our cooking, but it can be used as an antiseptic. You make these into teas. Now, how much do you use? We use 3 tablespoons of a cut herb. So like, let's say if we have a diuretic tea for our blood pressure patients, then that might be parsley and corn silk and watermelon seed. We use 3 tablespoons of that. We steep it in the water for 20 minutes. They add another 3 cups of water to it, and they use that as their water intake along with their regular water during the day. So it's like you're taking a pill all the way through the day. And also, many of you are familiar with hibiscus, or what some people call sorrel. We use this to lower blood pressure also, very effectively. Chamomile, again, echinacea, and garlic. And again, I'm just going through these things briefly. There's many even classes that you can take. I think even through Light, through Wildwood, that you can get training and understanding of how to use the herbs. And of course, there's a lot of good books out there. Aloe vera, we should all have an aloe vera plant in our home, or something like this in a tube, so we can use that for burns. It's very good for constipation, for purging. And there's the balm. This is eucalyptus. We can grow this in our area, and I'm sure you can grow it in yours. You can put it in your water, but we use a mixture with a cough syrup with lemon juice and purple onion and like 2 drops or so of, 10 drops of eucalyptus oil. And every time you get a cough, you take a little spoonful of that. Then we have the myrrh, your sage. Sage is also good for stomach irritation. And then there are blood purifiers. As you read in Selected Messages in the Spirit of Prophecy, it's mentioned in the use of the red clover for cancer. And I had a friend that had breast cancer. She did the hot baths and continued that care and stayed on a plant-based diet. She's like now, she did have the mastectomy, but she's lived like 30, 40 years on from that time. But she took red clover every night. And then we have the burdock. And there's the picture of the red clover. Many of you are familiar with that plant. Again, for burns, the aloe vera. I had a burn the other night and put shredded raw potato. I first got an experience with this when I was working at Wellness Secrets in Arkansas. And our head cook had put one of these frozen lemon juices in the microwave to thaw it out quickly. And when she opened up the microwave, the seal broke on it and flipped, and all that hot juice burnt her forearm. And she said, "Get me potato." And so we shredded potato on there and wrapped her arm in it. She had no swelling, no burn or whatever. It was amazing. I was really convinced of it. Okay. And then, of course, cancer. We have an immune cancer tea at our herb shop. And we sell it, and so you might have different combinations of teas in there. Blue violet, as you'll see, you're very familiar with the blue violet. Yes, it is the one that we dry and use the flower and the leaf for cancers. And of course, back to chaparral, that is a cut, and you have to boil that. Echinacea, again, the red clover. And padiarco is a bark. It's more commonly used for cancers. And we do alternate these. And if you want, more information, you can ask us. So these are some pictures of these plants. Isn't God good? He foresaw that man could choose to walk out of his will, and that many of these things would come upon humanity. And he gave us these provisions to meet our needs. And of course, these are decongestants. And this brother, he brought a chamomile plant. Very good. Are you going to invite him over for tea? To help them sleep? I don't know about you, but when the time change happened, I had a hard time. And I took chamomile every night, and that helped me to be able to get into a better pattern. Then we got decongestants. How many more minutes do I have? 2? Okay, I've got 78 slides, and I'm going to cut it short. I'm only on the 27th one. So these are decongestants. Again, what? You're looking at the baseline is your lifestyle habits. These, you don't want to treat these things like medicines, and like you want to use them when you need them. But, we should have to, have to use these things less and less when our lifestyle is such where it will help us. Mullein. I have convinced the girls on our floor that mullein is great. I'll show you a picture of it. They had a lot of mucus on some after these respiratory things, and I fixed them the tea during the day, and he said, couldn't believe how much that broke up their mucus. But all these ones are good for decongestant. So that's the ephedra, We have the mullein. You've seen it grow probably around here. You can use it in its green form as a tea, or you can dry it through the winter and have it in hand. Your slippery elm. Do you know during the Civil War that the men that couldn't get food would strip the bark and get this slippery elm and bulk up their stomachs? But it's a very good soother for people that have ulcerative colitis, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and it just soothes it. Sometimes you think about the slippery elm lozenges, that helps soothe the throat also. So very, very good item there. And then your digestion. Maybe we'll end with this one. How's that sound? What's that? Okay. So your papaya leaves, okay, are very healing for the stomach. A lot of people use the papaya enzymes, to take when they have digestive issues, gastritis, and so on. Believe it or not, catnip, even though that's generally used for sleep inducement, for us, not for the cats, okay, but it induces sleep. It still helps with your digestion. And again, chamomile, there's a dual purpose there. It's not only a sedative, but we looked at it antiseptic quality, and it's help in the sedative. Your mints. A lot of us can grow mints right outside of our home. It's not only tasty, but it's very good for the digestion. On some people with GERDs, I think it sometimes maybe can irritate. You just have to see yourself. And of course, oregano and slippery elm. And you can see the pictures of these. And we should become intelligent as to using them. The oregano, a lot of us grow that. And this is, again, our not only a diuretic for like blood pressures, but you think of this in relationship to urinary tract issues. Many times our patients get urinary tract infection. We might give them the cranberry capsules or uva ursi or buku, and those things are able to help decrease a urinary tract infection. But then you can also see these other diuretics like the watermelon. That would be the watermelon seed, okay, is powdered. Your corn silk, of course, you don't want to have it on a corn that has been sprayed, but if you have your own corn and you have that corn silk, you can harvest that and you can use that as a diuretic. And celery seed that we would use in our cooking, you can use it in the for blood pressure. I do that when I'm in a pinch, like if I'm somebody's home and they don't have some of these things, I say, let's go to your kitchen and see what you have and use some of these items. There's the buku. Parsley, again, we're very familiar with that. We even did parsley juice at one time in our history to help people's blood pressures come down. This is a beautiful little plant, the uva ursi. And you can see, of course, the corn silk we're all familiar with. Sometimes you have female issues, female problems. So there are what we call minnow herbs or black cohosh. Again, just because these things are good doesn't mean you have to use a lot of them. I had a friend and she took a whole bunch and got like a headache. So you want to be intelligent about the use of those. Don Coy, red raspberry. I had a friend, she had a lot of facial hairs. It was very embarrassing for her, but she started using the red raspberry and that decreased, I think, the testosterone, and she was able to see those things cleared up. And peppermint, surprisingly enough. So you can see pictures of these, the black cohosh, the Don Coy, and that your raspberry comes from your leaf there. And we also use this in sweating, like if we want to get people sweating more, like we have them in a sauna or detoxing, we'll give them raspberry tea also. And of course, healing. I'll share here about a man that came to our program. Well, he came to the hospital, actually. He had been on a plant-based diet, then got back into eating meat. He got the worst. I mean, I have never seen it. It was so terrible. His flesh, it was like, it smelled, it was like, I remember it was in room number 4. And Dr. Grievous said, can you go take pictures on this? And this man had big blisters. And it seemed, I don't know if you've ever heard of the disease Savage Fire, but I read this book just before previously having this man come to our facility, and that's just what it looked like. It was just oozing pus out of these sores and so on. So Dr. Grievous was trying charcoal and other things, but we fasted, prayed, many did, and just asking the Lord for wisdom. And someone brought up about pine sap, and Christine Payne, our nurse director at the time, she remembered back at our pharmacy we had this container of pine sap. And in the meantime, Dr. Grievous was trying to get these out of his trees, and you just can't get enough. And what we did was we started painting this man down with the pine sap. And that was the thing that resolved it, of course, in addition to what he was doing in his changes of his lifestyle. But it was really miraculous because this man had to have change of clothing and dressings and all the time. And it was terrible. I mean, it was terrible for him and his family to see that. And we're all familiar with tea tree oil. You know, many times this is good on fungus and so on. So you can see some pictures of this. And again, it's just a matter of, practicing and using some of these things as they come up. And yes, it is right from the pine tree. Isn't that good, right? And we won't even get into essential oils that much, but Joy had mentioned earlier about the hawthorn berry for the heart. And so we will use that with the CoQ10 with hawthorn in it. And that's good for atrial fibrillation. And the immune system, basil, chamomile, again, most of all the echinacea, golden seal, and the garlic. Those are the ones that we use quite often for the immune system, just as she said last night with her father and painting the golden seal on those wounds. And again, it's our familiar basil we use in our cooking, but you do it medicinally. And then a laxative, these laxatives. And you do not want to you can even get hooked on natural laxatives, okay? So you want to discover in your, what is happening so you can get at the cause. Is it water? Is it lack of exercise? Is it my narcotics I'm taking for pain? Is it, stressors? Even these can tense up the colon because you can get, to the point where you're dependent on these things too. But they certainly are a blessing when they're needed, right? So the Senate, Cascara sagrada, you might get a little griping in your intestine, but they do help be a laxative for you. And of course the prunes and psyllium, but you definitely have to take a lot of water when you're taking some of these items. And we'll show you some pictures now. Cascara sagrada. Of course, isn't that beautiful, the flaxseed? We have the brown and the golden flaxseed. And the psyllium. The psyllium comes off of the flower, I guess, of the broadleaf plantain, okay, which you, I'm sure, have all over here also. And there's the senna. And, of course, these are for the liver. We're more using milk thistle. You've heard that for liver conditions. Again, these are just a component of a good, healthy lifestyle and improving your circumstances. And I'll show you those pictures. Dandelion, you can eat the yellow flower and the weed. When I was working with our Korean brothers and sisters over at Eden Valley in Colorado, they use a lot of this because when they came out of the Japanese-Korea war there, they started using a lot of weeds in their dietary. So they still use them in their culture. Sesame leaf, the dandelion, but they're very, very tasty. But we use the root and the leaf to our blood pressure issues. And then, of course, pain is a big one. I don't want to leave that out. So we may use feverfew for headaches, but we also, in relationship to pain. The peach leaves you can use. Skullcap, valerian is very good. It just smells terrible. So if you want to have it around, make sure it's concealed because it is like, let's be frank, dirty socks. That's what it smells like. And then the white willow bark, this is where your aspirin is derived from. And so we will have people on that to help relieve their pain. And you can see some nice pictures of that. Feverfew, of course, your peach leaves that you're familiar with, skullcap, and the valerian. And so parasites, I'm just going to quickly go over it. And the prostate, you've mentioned about that saw palmetto for the man, and the pumpkin seeds. And again, changes in the lifestyle to improve that. Okay, and should we finish? Citronella and also bay. When we were down in the islands, we had terrible mosquitoes down there. And we would take the clove oil and mix it with the oil and rub this on our skin. And for 4 to 5 hours, we wouldn't be bothered by any insects. So you didn't have to use those smoking coils or anything, and that was very helpful. But you can see these are different repellents there. And I think we'd covered the respiratory, so I'm going to just finish with this one on the sedatives. Catnip, hop, passion flower, skullcap, valerian. So if you need inducers for your sleep, you may want to take this in the capsule form or take this in a tea form to help aid you in sleep. Again, you want a good sleep protocol, going to bed at the same time, dark room, nice temperature. There are certain things that will help induce your sleep and addressing the causes of why you're not sleeping properly. But there's many, many things on the market. And again, you can use these to induce the sleep. You can see the hops. You know, man uses it for beer, right? But God intended it to be used for a good purpose. Passion flower we will use on our heart patients, get their blood pressures down. And it's also a sedative to relax the system. And that's it. Okay.
Thank you so much. Boy, I learned a lot. They don't teach that in medical school, by the way. And, but it's, I may actually ask, I was thinking as I'm sitting there, I'm going to ask Mary to give a talk to the physicians that I supervise. There are about 42 of them. Locally, they are very interested in this. I actually may arrange for you to give the talk to the medical group, which is about 360 of us monthly, but they are very interested. Guys, you are getting information that a lot of doctors are very interested in. There's actually talk about putting some of this in our board exams. And because some of those herbs are in my last board certification that I took to be certified as a internist in internal medicine. So you guys got a ton of information. I'm sitting there listening, and it was like being in a medical lecture, especially with Derrick Hamilton. He really gave a good talk. I'm going to keep my words. It says, understanding and preventing and reducing lifestyle diseases. Have one for each of you. Do not leave without it. Tomorrow is a cooking class at 10 o'clock, and then the lecture at 2 o'clock. Is that right, 10? I didn't take, is that right? 10? And then the cooking class is at 10, and 2 o'clock it will be the last lecture. Charcoal and poultices, and the manual hydrotherapy. We'll actually do the hydrotherapy. We'll actually show you how to do the poultices. Charcoal, I'm actually very interested in that. My mom just is going to be operated with breast cancer, and after you do that, those poultices are very good. So I'm looking forward to learning that, because I'm going to use it on my mom, because the other choice is radiation and chemo, and I don't want to go for that. So we are hearing some good stuff tomorrow. Want to invite you out to do that. So 10 o'clock if you've registered for the cooking class. If not, our lecture for the charcoal and poultices will be at 2. Thank you for coming, and I'll be at the door to hand this out to you. Let's pray. Could we stand for prayer? Dear Father, thank you so much for how much you love us and how much you do for us. And you want us to live good lives, Lord, but then you gave us herbs for the healing. And we thank you for this information that we're getting so that we can look at that. Thank you for Joy, Derrick, and Mary that have come to help us. Lord, I just pray that you'll be with us as we go home, bring us back to hear more and be more of a fellowship and understand what you have in store for us to learn. And we praise you for who you are in our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Oh, by the way, after the